Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was transported into Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Anti-KK and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Stepping onto one of the many skulls lying among thousands of broken skeletons sprawled all over the surface of the earth, a clawed foot pushed down and crushed the round bone into small pieces. Sharp red eyes looked over the smoke-filled space that was once known as the Elemental Nation. Nothing was alive, everything was gone. The only presence remaining was a thick smell of death hanging in the air. A figure of a male looked down at his cut, sharp hands that oozed blood. "It's all gone." Deep sense of sorrow and remorse flashed in his red eyes before they turned back to the deepest shades of azure. His world and its time had finally come to an end. He had known it would come to pass, and he had tried to warn his people, heeding them to listen, alas none did. Is this all my fault? Was I not sworn to protect them? Even gods can't always be expected to save the world. Naruto, pushing the feeling of dread and guilt away from his shoulders in favor of hearing the soothing whispers from deep inside his mind, Naruto stepped over the corpses of no flesh and blood and entered the crumbled gates of the proud village he once called home. With his generation ending and a new one rising, the last of his closest friends passing and unfamiliar people coming, Naruto himself had slowly faded into a mythical tale. A hero, who he was once known as, had become nothing but a fictional titan among the gods and people who worshipped them. Naruto, jailer of the demon, fool of his generation, son of a hero, hero of his village, the saver of the world, had many titles given to him throughout his human life. As he became strong, he had become respected and loved. However, as with most things, this life had to pass. The merger of the demon was his final title before his existence became an undistinguishable tale in the books. Walking along the chilly streets, Naruto looked to his right where the ever-profitable Ichiraku stand used to be. Even after all these years, it stood its ground in this very same spot. If only he could remember that taste he always savored so dearly. Stopping before the crumbled symbol of the main tower, Naruto looked up and frowned at the smooth surface of the Hokage mountain, still standing tall and proud, always overlooking the whole village. However, what was once known as the Honorable Ruler's Mountain was now nothing more than a simple blank rock. The end came quickly. No one noticed and no one felt it. But could the apocalypse of his world really be dropped on his shoulders? Like an everlasting guilt he could not have prevented. Was it truly because of him that people laughed when he said the world will cease to exist? No. Raising his hand, Naruto slashed his claws over thin air, watching as they struck into the sky and tore it apart. A way into an opening portal was revealed, leading into the dark unknown. Becoming the last of his kind, more than a Jinchuriki, more than a loyal ninja of elemental nations, the demon of these lands and the last person on this world, Naruto found no more reason to stay. Looking down at the rising dust by his bare feet, he smiled as a symbol of his home village was revealed, carved into a shimmering headband buried under the ground. The last will of fire. Once a proud guardian of the nations and a being that outlived centuries, his purpose had finally come to an end. His home and his people were no more. A spark of electricity cackled around him, disturbing winds and clouds as the portal began closing. With one final look at what once was and is no more, Naruto's lips formed one last grin before he entered the portal. His mind set on finding a new home and maybe a place to belong. Inside the 12th Division surveillance room, display monitors suddenly turned red in alarm, signaling an intrusion of an unknown entity entering the human world. Quickly entering the room, a woman wearing white robes and up-tied hairstyle jumped into her seat and began tapping the keyboards. Soon a picture appeared on the screen, however, completely shaded in black. Frowning, she tapped a few more commands but got nothing. "Why can't I see you?" Standing up, she pressed a green button over the top monitor and cursed. The picture was still indistinguishable. Peering down at the widely beeping computer, her eyes skimmed over the printed data of the phenomena's outline. She went agape. This can't be possible. Tearing the prints out, she ran out of the room. "Captain Kurasakis. What is it, Rin? Can't you see I'm busy?" Looking up from his half-dazed patient, Mayuri Kurasakis bared his yellow teeth. "If you're here to deliver me one of those annoying complaint letters, drop a bomb in it and send it back with flowers." No, Captain. Take a look at this." Shoving the imprints under his nose, the woman scrunched her nose up when she glanced at her crazed captain's experiment. Interesting, very interesting." Placing the purple mixture down, he stared at the prints keenly. "When was this taken?" "About 2 minutes ago, Captain." "I don't understand, our monitors could not distinguish the image of this thing, but it nearly overloaded the system when it tried to read its energetic substance." Rubbing his cheek, the orange-eyed captain mumbled to himself as he evaluated their new discovery. "It has a very high amount of spiritual energy, but then again it's not a spirit or a hollow." "Captain? Should I inform the commander of this?" "Don't bother yourself, Rin. I'm going to take care of this myself. In the meantime, look after my pet while I'm out." Stuffing the prints into his robes, Kuratsuchi exited his lab. Where is it located now? Having read and reread the imprints of the 12th Division's findings, Jinrikisai Shijikuni Yamamoto, the captain commander of Gate 13, passed a thoughtful look towards Mayuri. Right now, it seems to be wandering around the center of the Karakura town, in Mishiba. Leaning lazily in his chair, a slyly smirking man with lean silver-white hair looked over at his monitor as it suddenly started beeping. Pressing a glowing button, he peered closely at the screen. Hey now little guy, who might you be? Pushing a few more buttons, he looked over the radars that measured the little guy's spiritual pressure. His eyebrows shot up. Not so little anymore I see. Isen will definitely like to hear about this. Disguising himself under a jutsu in favor of concealing his no longer human appearance, Naruto sat on top of the tallest building he found in the small town. Prompting his elbows on his dangling knees, he tapped his fingers over a flask filled with silver liquid mercury. The favorite kind of a drink for a demon like himself. Too bad that he had to use some drastic measures to obtain it. That poor old doctor will probably never recover after their encounter. The day Naruto found himself entering the new world was the day he hated the place already. Not only because people here were very strange, with all sorts of weird devices used at their disposal, and because those same people were currently pointing fingers at him from the bottom of the 20-story building, with strange flickering blue-white-red lights on top of the moving metal boxes around them, but mainly because he simply could not get out. All possibilities to open a new portal that could lead him out of this universe were blocked. He was stuck. Who is blocking my way out? He wondered to himself. Leaving his drink on the roof, Naruto stood up, ignoring the women's terrified screams and men shouting at him to not jump, and headed for the exit. Beneath the building, officers and lifeguards radioed to their companions inside the building that the suicidal teenager was surrendering and about to exit the roof. But what they did not know was as soon as the doors to the roof opened and police went to apprehend him, Naruto had disappeared and reappeared behind the gathered mob of people below, leaving them to search for thin air, finding only a flask of leftover mercury. Gee simpletons. Stuffing his hands in his black pants, Naruto headed for the park. Are you sure we came to the right place? Yes. Then where could it be? Erg. For the last time, I don't know. Quit bugging me about it. What do you mean quit bugging me? We're searching for it together, idiot. Looking to his left, Naruto blinked in confusion as two strangely dressed people suddenly brushed by him. Their outer appearance, which consisted of a black hosote and hakama, a pair of white tabi and waraji, and a white obi, was not as much of an eye-catcher as two katanas strapped by their hips. So far, within this odd town he quickly learned that people did not dress into something as traditional-looking as his home people used to, instead choosing to wear too uptight jeans for pants, wavy buttoned-up shirts or t-shirts and long jackets. And they definitely did not carry around weapons such as katanas or kunes. Unless a rectangular, flat-ringing piece of metal and plastic could be called a weapon, though why place it against the ear and shout at it? Looking back at the backs of the two strangely dressed people who began bickering over something he did not quite understand, Naruto frowned in thought. With their garments so close to the ones his hometown people used to wear, maybe those two were the same as him. Or were they local folks just dressing up for a costume party? Though why would they use such a traditional wear? Opening his mouth, Naruto was about to call them out, but stopped and blinked as they suddenly turned towards him. He blinked again, they were staring at him, but then again they were not. Did you feel that? Asked the short light brown-haired woman, gripping the leathered handle of her katana. Well, they certainly ain't normal folk, even if locals. Naruto stepped back, sensing the air thicken with pressure as the two raised their guard, as if readying for some kind of an attack. Maybe someone was behind him. Besides, it won't be the first time he's ignored. Looking over his shoulder and finding nothing misplaced, Naruto felt confused. Must be your imagination, Kiin. There's nothing here. Said the man wearing a white headband around his forehead and white shoulder straps. Naruto raised his hand and waved at them. Both tensed again but saw nothing. Naruto was deeply confused now. They could not see him, but they could feel his presence from his movements. Did they even know that they were surrounded by hundreds of people walking past? Then again, as he looked toward said people passing by while throwing awkward glances his way as if checking his mentality, they didn't even seem to notice the other two. Are they ghosts? TCH. What the hell? Dropping her stance, the woman cursed. I can feel something here, but I don't see it. Hearing that, Naruto looked at his hands. Could it be? The man rubbed his eyes tiredly. Forget it. It must be fatigue. We've been out here for nearly 3 hours without any leads toward that damn thing. It probably doesn't even exist. The 12th Division must have their scanners toasted. You're right. Let's just head back to the captain and report we found nothing. Agreeing, both turned away and disappeared before Naruto's eyes. Was that a flash step? Furrowing his brows, Naruto looked around himself and the rest of the people close by. Everything seemed just as normally ignorant as always. They didn't even see those two. A sudden drop of rain broke Naruto's thoughts, and he looked up at the darkening sky. It was beginning to rain. Great. Now where on earth am I supposed to hide? Naruto left the open road and walked into the park. He quickly found himself a tree to hide under. It was getting pretty chilly and late, and one by one people rushed through the park away from the rain and towards their warm homes. Watching the last man run through the park while holding a case over his head, Naruto leant against a tree and closed his eyes. Could it be that my transformation jutsu has some kind of an effect that prevents them from seeing me? Slowly, Naruto let the jutsu fade from his hands and watched them turn back to bony fingers with long claws. Or is it the effect of being part demon? But then why can everyone else see me clearly? Were those guys not human? What the hell is going on? The sudden sound of something getting shot towards him forced Naruto to jump away from the tree. Not a second later the tree exploded into thousands of pieces under a bright red light that covered its entire being and tore it out of existence. Looking quickly towards the spot where the killer light was directed from, Naruto's eyes widened at what they saw. It's a person. And he's flying. A fairly short-looking young man dressed entirely in white attire, similar to those two strangers he saw earlier, only with longer sleeves, was smirking broadly down at him from his spot in the sky. I finally found you. He laughed and pulled out a long katana before charging straight at dumbfounded Naruto. But he has no wings. Is that even possible here? Naruto was too wonderstruck over the fact that a person was flying to even have the time to dodge a piercing attack. Sidestepping the flying man at the last moment, Naruto quickly caught his wrist holding the katana and snapped it with a twist, disarming the man from his weapon and kicked him away. Bastard. All the man did was let out a small grunt of pain before he began attacking Naruto in close range with no concern over his broken arm. Is that the best you can do? Taunted the short man as he sent hit after hit towards the blonde. Evading and dodging the man's hits, Naruto was still trying to understand what the hell was going on. Why was this man attacking him? Though his distracting thoughts gave the other an opening and he got punched to the face. Ha! That's right. Die. Screamed the young man as he quickly grabbed his fallen katana and jumped high in the air. Opening his eyes, Naruto forced his weight onto his hands and quickly flipped away before the man nailed him to the ground. Piercing his blade into the earth, the man cursed that the other managed to dodge him. Where did you go now? He yelled, seeing no signs of the blonde anywhere. Trying to feel his energy, the short black-haired man smirked. Ah, clever. Are you trying to conceal yourself again? Perched in a high tree, Naruto breathed out puffs of air as he looked back at his hands that he concealed back under the jutsu. It seemed that even the slightest drop of his transformation jutsu, hiding his true form, would give away his location entirely. I guess that's why those two couldn't see me then. Walking around the trees, the androgynous-looking man tried to find his missing target. He couldn't feel its energy, but he could feel its presence close by. You're probably confused. I can tell that you're slowly starting to understand the flaws and advantages of your powers in here. That's right, I know you're not from this world. And with that disguise you're using now you are able to conceal your presence from me entirely. I can't even find you by your spiritual energy. However, turning his head slowly to the right, the man rolled his lavender eyes upwards, unlike a soul reaper. I can still see you. Startled by his words, Naruto quickly pushed away from the branch before it was sliced open by the man's katana. A rather jumpy fella, aren't ya? Appearing up in the tree the blonde previously occupied, the man smirked as he heard loud splashing footsteps near the road. I got ya now. With a jump and a dash, he thrust his Zanpakuto forward and pierced it through the black figure running down the road. However, as soon as he came close to his kill, he realized that it was not the one he was hunting down, but a stray civilian just trying to get away from the rain. The unfortunate man spurted out a gush of blood and stared down at his chest, seeing only blood pour out of it. What is this? Scowling in disappointment, the short man ripped his blade out of the bleeding human. Shit, you're not him. Well, sorry, but right now you're in the way. Without remorse, he slashed his katana across the man's neck. Naruto's body stilled, unable to see, but able to hear everything that happened to the civilian that the man brutally killed, if a familiar sound of a blade scrapping against the bones gave him any notion of that. So, it wasn't because of Naruto's abnormality that the short man suddenly came out and attacked him, he was ruthless by nature. Flicking the blood from his weapon, the man turned his neck to the side. Still trying to hide from me, huh? The man outstretched his hand forward. A bright red light began forming in the middle of his palm. Well, we'll see about that. Zero. He yelled out and a powerful blast shot out of his palm, nearly covering the entire park, destroying everything on its way. Hidden behind a sculpture, Naruto gasped as it suddenly crumbled before his eyes. He quickly brought his hands forward and formed an invisible shield around himself. Pulling his hand back to his side, the man smirked when he saw his target finally revealed behind the dusted area of nothingness. Are you finally done running, demon? Naruto paled at the man's sudden enunciation and quick look down at his hands, the transformation jutsu was still intact. Then how does he know what I am? The man pointed his zanpakuto at Naruto. You have a very powerful energy deep down within you. I can sense it. No Soul Reaper or Hollow has such an intriguing smell. It's very foul. And I really want to see its full extent. Why aren't you unleashing it? Naruto glared. How does he know all that? It's certainly clear enough that this is not a normal man. But still, why should I unleash something I don't see point in doing? Are you trying to offend me? Pushing his blade high above his head, the angered man yelled, strangle. Naruto shielded his eyes as a huge gust of wind and dust suddenly smacked into his face. The man had unleashed some sort of a deeper power from within. Pulling his hand down, Naruto blinked his eyes wide. What the hell is that? Before him was the same little man, only now overtaken by an outrageous form. There were 8 enormous tentacle-like things connected to his back, and on his head a white bone cowl appeared. Naruto vaguely remembered seeing something on his head when he first appeared. Was that a skull bone sticking out then? Do you see any point to use it now, huh? The madly grinning man challenged, proud by the other's reaction at his self-noted impressive transformation. Come on. Show me your strength. He yelled just as one of the tentacles suddenly began storming right at Naruto. Jumping away, Naruto stared in slight amazement as the white mass slammed into the ground, creating a huge crater. What the hell is happening? Naruto quickly looked up and cursed as another tentacle came storming at him from above and punched him to the ground. Naruto grunted as something sharp abruptly came out of the mass holding him down and pierced him through his left side. Pushing the thing off, Naruto rolled away before another of the white tentacles was forced down on him. Staring at the blonde demon trying to dodge his trapdoor, the man lidded his eyes halfway. This is getting boring. Must I force that power out of you? He watched in satisfaction as one his tentacles got the demon in the face and brought him down again. Naruto got pinned to the ground. 2 of the free tentacles formed into sharp spikes and nailed him down by piercing his wrists. The weird man flew towards him and loomed from above. Why are you still not letting your power out? Why hide such immensity? Unleash it. Do it before I kill you. Despite sweat gathering at his temple, Naruto did nothing aside glare up at the man spitting threats. Keeping the transformation jutsu concealed in his current predicament was a bit challenging, but for the benefit of his pride and self-esteem, Naruto did not want to grant the man such a privilege. The man was starting to get infuriated. Was the demon doing it on purpose? Was he considering him weak and refused to fight on the same level? Bastard. Show it to me or I'll break your skull. To emphasize the point, he brought another tentacle up and aimed it at Naruto's face. Those sudden gasps from the side halted all of the action, and both of the fighters quickly looked towards the walkway. A small boy of perhaps 5 or 6 years was staring at the transformed man with frightened eyes and hands covering his mouth. Naruto's eyes widened while the man shone in sickening glee. A kid. Hell, this is just the kind of kill I like best. Innocent and pure. Grinning with delight, the man outstretched his hand towards the shocked boy. Naruto quickly realized what's to come and yelled at the fear-struck child, move. Too easy. Sneered the man and fired the red blast he called Zero. The small child's eyes widened as a red ball of light suddenly blocked his entire view. Covering his eyes with his hands, his scream was silenced by the explosion. Dropping his hand, the man sniggered at the sight left behind his attack. Nothing but blackness. Now that the nuisance is gone, I think we can proceed. Naruto bared his teeth. You just killed a child. Without remorse. So? Children are weak, they come easy and go easy. No big deal. What are you? Me? The man smiled at the attention and proudly proclaimed, I'm Luppy. And a rancor. A rancor? Not too sure whether it's his second name or some kind of a nickname, Naruto did not care to wonder for long. Well then, Luppy. I hope you're just as good with defense as you are with your attacks. What's that supposed to mean? Bringing the man into fury, the blonde's features formed into a sadistic grin. Luppy's eyes widened as something red suddenly shot out of the demon's abdomen and went straight around him, twirling his whole body in a blood-red energy that gripped all of his limbs and tightened them close. It quickly tore through his clothes and began burning against his skin. Wow, what is this? Screamed Luppy, struggling to escape the gripping power. It was incinerating his body as it curled around him whole. Don't struggle, you'll only die quicker. Startled, Luppy quickly looked up at a tree situated a good distance from the blonde demon that was pinned in front of him and stared. There stood the same blonde. The same blonde he was keeping floored on the ground was standing, but not a few feet away from him. An exact duplicate, and he was holding the child who he thought he had killed. How? How the hell? Cocking his head to the side, Naruto looked away from his clone, who was now keeping a tight grip on Luppy with his chakra, and replied indifferently, you said you wanted to see my power. So, I'm giving you a glimpse. Luppy's eyes widened as the copy of what he now realized was the original sneered at him and bared its teeth. Scarily, they seemed to sharpen the wider the demon grinned. See you in hell, Luppy. The burning force suddenly slammed into Luppy's chest and he screamed in grand pain before a huge explosion erupted from within him. The whole ground shook from the blast, startling some people close by. Unshielding his arm from around the child in his hand, Naruto looked past his shoulder. There was nothing left from Orankar Luppy except a small part of his bony cowl. Irony. Jumping from the tree, Naruto kneeled on the ground and placed the trembling boy to his feet. The poor thing was petrified, he was all shaking up and Naruto doubted it was because of the rain. Hey, brushing a moist orange strand of hair from his eyes, Naruto spoke gently, you okay? The child's breath hitched and his wide eyes rose up to meet his. Tears abruptly began falling across the boy's dirty cheeks and he launched himself into Naruto's arms without thinking. Naruto hissed at the close contact but allowed the boy to cling onto him while he wept. Did that man frighten you? Receiving not much of an answer save a sniff, Naruto awkwardly rubbed the boy's back to try and soothe him. Don't worry, he won't touch you again. That I promise. Just when he finally thought he calmed the child enough, a sudden scream from women nearly tore Naruto's ears out and he quickly looked at a bunch of gathered people staring at them from the side. Oh my god. What happened here? They screamed, staring dumbfounded around the destroyed park until spotting a dead figure of that unfortunate man who got in Luppy's way. Dear lord, he's dead. Half of the attention momentarily snapped back towards the blood-covered Naruto holding a crying child and Naruto already knew that things were not going to turn out in his favor. He killed him. One frightened teenager suddenly screeched, pointing at Naruto with an unwavering agreement from the rest of the crowd. And he's got a child for ransom. Someone call the police. And by the looks of it, Naruto was positive that having police on his case won't be a fortunate omen. Better bolt pulling the boy closer to his chest and gathering his chakra around them both, Naruto quickly disappeared from view, with no care of being seen or leaving the humans gaping at what they all have just witnessed. Jumping under the bridge, Naruto hid into the shadows and listened until metallic boxes of red-blue lights rolled over the bridge and out of sight. Sighing in relief he slumped against the inner supports of the bridge and sat down. It should be safe here at least for now. Mulling things over, Naruto completely forgot the small boy sitting in his arms and peering at him curiously and silently until he decided to speak. Oh Ani-san. Cracking one eye open, Naruto looked down at the watery chestnut eyes and finally made a better overview of the little boy. The child was very young. His hair, although wet and shaded from the rain, was bright orange. Eyes shimmered in light brown or perhaps amber. His skin color was lightly tanned, close to Naruto's own. He was wearing a plain-looking blue shirt with gray jeans and light running shoes. He was still shaking, probably now more because of the cold rain and his clinging wet clothes. I better get him home before he gets sick. What the hell was he doing out at such a night anyway? I couldn't even find a single scent of his parents nearby. Groaning, Naruto gently pushed the boy off his lap and stood up. Where do you live, boy? The orange-haired child gave him a couple curious blinks before pointing to the left. Naruto arched a brow, but decided to have more specific directions on the way and grabbed the boy's hand. Come. You'll show me on the way. Stepping back into the rain, Naruto pulled the boy after, which could have been much easier if the boy hadn't suddenly stopped and tugged his hand back to stop him as well. Are you able to see them too? He suddenly asked in a meek voice. Naruto blinked at the abrupt question. So it ain't a common thing to see strange beings in this town, huh? He knew what the boy was referring to, but still wanted to hear how the child would formulate it and asked, see who? That man he was flying. I know, hard to believe, nah. Yes, he was. Have you seen those like him before? The child shook his head and whispered under his nose with a slight shiver. Not people, I've seen monsters. Monsters, huh? Really now, children and their fantasies are wild. He might just be pulling my leg. But then again, what do you call me? Finding a bit of a humor in that, Naruto looked back into the rainy night with a thoughtful frown. Could it be that there is something about this world that lives beyond the understanding of humanity? Shaking his head in dismissal, Naruto pulled on the boy's hand. Come on. Let's go. But the boy pulled him back again, much to his growing irritation. What is it now? An ice in your stomach. Staring down at a small finger pointing below his ribs, Naruto glimpsed at the bleeding mess that was his left side. Oh right, I forgot. It's bleeding. Don't worry about it. It'll heal in no time. Brushing the problem off, Naruto continued dragging the boy after himself, who was starting to get too persistent for his concern as he refused to give the matter up. But it looks deep. An Isen. Stop calling me an Isen. Growled Naruto, but the child didn't seem to hear him too well. You need a doctor. Listen kid. I think I can handle my own problems. You better start worrying about what you're going to tell your parents once you're back home. What were you thinking walking around at such a time alone and in the rain nonetheless? Where's your father and mother? Whether from Naruto's yell or something else, the mood suddenly dropped till zero, and Naruto blinked as the boy stopped walking and hung his head, his lower lip trembling slightly. What's the matter? The boy clapped his lip tightly between his teeth in a stubborn attempt to stop himself from bursting into tears. What? Getting impatient, Naruto nearly snapped, but quickly bit his tongue when he heard a small hitch and a sniff. Is there something wrong? And my mom she's and not she's. Naruto's eyes widened when the boy suddenly broke down. Shinda. Shit. Naruto cursed himself for opening his mouth in the first place. Whoa, hey. Don't cry, okay? Damn it. I'm not good with this. Dropping to his knees, Naruto gripped the whimpering boy's shoulders to calm him, but groaned as the boy leached onto him again. Why did she have to die? Why? The boy cried, clenching Naruto's blood-soaked shirt into his small hands so tight that they were starting to turn white. Trying to shush him, Naruto rubbed smooth circles on the boy's back and clumsily petted his head. Easy, it's alright. You don't have to cry. I'm sure your mother had not left you, well, not completely at least. What do you mean? How do you even know? The boy hiccuped. Well, because I know. Yay, I know, nice comeback. Smartest. Heaving a small sigh, Naruto ignored his inner belittling and focused on the depressed child. Look, please understand, death is, well, it's part of life. Sadly, it is inevitable and I'm sorry, but no crying or yelling will ever make a difference to it. Eyelids lowering slightly, Naruto thought back on his parents and later all his friends. I know it hurts when someone close to you dies. It hurts a lot and I understand how you feel. But despite all the sadness and grief, try to think of it this way. You might not see her physically, but a part of her will always remain with you. Brushing his running nose, the kid looked at Naruto's softened blue eyes. With me? Relieved to see some light on the child's face, Naruto smiled. Yes. Just cause your mom's not here anymore does not mean she left you all alone in this world. A part of her will always keep living deep within you. Right here. He said, pressing a finger over the boy's beating heart. And do you know how to take care of it and make this part of her stay happy? Eyes wide and head shaking from side to side, the boy wanted the man to tell him. Placing his hand on the orange mop, Naruto made sure the child was listening to him before he spoke. Live. You live and you carry on living. I'm certain, for your mother, there's nothing more important than making sure her little boy is safe and happy. And if you do that, you will make her very, very happy. Closing his eyes, Naruto gave the boy a wide grin. Huge brown eyes shimmered as they stared transfixed at the blonde man. Every word he spoke, be it through a scowl or a smile, the boy found himself clinging to dearly. This man, this strange but strong man, somehow he felt. Placing his hand over his own heart, the boy's breath hitched. The quick, distressed beats of his heart were no longer painfully hammering his ribsage. It's so peaceful. So calming. Somehow this man's presence was soothing him. Flicking the spaced-out boy's nose, Naruto almost burst laughing when the kid jumped and quickly looked up at him with a huge blush. So no more crying, okay? As long as you take care of yourself, your mom will always look after you from the beyond. You just have to believe that. Like an angel. No more sorrow in the eyes, the boy smiled. Yeah, thought Naruto wistfully, just like an angel. Now come on. I better take you home. You're already drained as is. Pulling the boy into his arms, Naruto decided to grant the doleful child such privilege and carry him. Fearlessly encircling his hands around the blonde shoulders, the child tucked his head under the other's chin and whispered, Isen. What is your name? Glancing down at the boy who looked ready to fall asleep, Naruto pondered a bit before answering just as silently, Naruto. Secretly, he hoped the boy won't remember him when he wakes up. Naruto. Closing his eyes, the boy sighed in safe content and silently drifted off to sleep. Sighing himself, Naruto stopped walking and peered down at the orange head, thinking back on the events that happened to them both. How come a child was able to see that flying man, but no one else was? Is it common to all this world's children, or is this boy somehow different? Does he have some kind of a special ability? Now hold up. Sudden realization dropped down on him like a ton of bricks, and he palmed his face. Shit. You're a genius, Uzumaki. Fucking moron of a genius. How could you let the child fall asleep before asking directions to his home? Erg. That is, if he actually has one. The last thought slightly stung, though with a quick dismiss, he brushed it off and looked around the empty street before jumping onto the tallest house roof he could find. I'll find your home the old-fashioned way. Then staring down on the peacefully sleeping boy, Naruto couldn't fathom whatever hellish reason made the child think it'd be safe to sleep in his arms, let alone be near him. Him of all things. He didn't think he even wanted to know. Kids are naive and too trusting. That's why they're so troublesome. Sighing in weariness, Naruto brought his nose near the boy's face and took in his scent. Searching then around the small town, he smirked as his senses quickly located the linked scent of the boy's home. But that smirk dropped a bit when he realized that the kid's home was in the exact opposite direction from the one he'd previously given him. Why have you done that, child? Were you trying to run away from home? Stiffing a loud yawn with his hands, tired, Isen Kurasaki rubbed his foggy eyes and peered at the watch. 21:55. The time just seems pointless without you. Hear Masaki burying his head into his hands, he breathed out in exhaustion. It had been 2 months since his wife's funeral, and yet the pain did not lessen. Time seemed to just stop without his consent, frozen within one giant sorrowful stretch ever since that day. Among them all, his only son Ichigo took it the hardest. Even after this long, he still did. He kept blaming himself for her death despite everyone doing their best to tell him otherwise. It was destroying Isen seeing his son's eyes become so lifeless and filled with unrequired guilt. He's just a child for Pit's sake. How could such a burden drop down on him so soon? I better go check on him. Rising from the plush chair, Isen gave a small smile to his other two sleeping bundles of joy and gently closed the door, leaving just a small gap open so he can hear his daughter's calls if needed. Approaching his 6-year-old son's room, he gently tapped on the door. Ichigo. There was no answer. Can I come in? Again, no reply followed. Partly expecting this anyway, Isen deemed it good enough a sign to enter the bedroom. I'm coming in, okay? The room was dark, and it seemed his son had already fallen asleep, but as he looked at the bed, he only wished it were the case. The light breeze met Isen's bare feet, and his expression dropped in an alarm. Flicking the lights on, he quickly looked around the empty room and the messed up bed, before running over to the widely opened window. No. Ichigo. You didn't. Looking into the dark rainy night in panic, Isen screamed for his son, hoping in vain to get a response, but all that came was a dim sound of lightning and pitter-patter. Shit. Storming out of the room, Isen ran towards the main entrance, fully intent on finding his runaway son. I never thought the stupid guilt would take him this far. He had never run away from home before. Grabbing his coat, Isen forced the door open and ran out. Though as soon as he stepped one foot into the rain, just as soon he yelled out in startle and jumped back as a blonde-haired young man suddenly appeared before him. Gah. I apologize if I frightened you, sir. But I believe there is someone you're looking for. The said blonde cautiously stepped a few feet closer and untucked a small orange-haired bundle in his arms. Isen's eyes widened and he rushed towards the man with a shout, Ichigo. The boy was out of Naruto's fingers sooner than he could blink. Ichigo. Don't you ever scare me like that again. Having woken up his sleepy son, Isen began hugging the death out of him. Have you any idea how worried I was? God, I'm so glad you're safe. Please don't do this to me again. Small guilt welled up in Ichigo's own eyes, and he buried his face in his agitated father's chest with a silent whimper of a sorry. Smiling at the painted picture of one concerned father showering his lost child with cries of affection, Naruto watched a father-son interaction with a swell of envy. Well, this can't be helped. Naruto waved his hand at the boy he now learned to be named Ichigo and turned to be on his merry way. Calming down in his father's arms, Ichigo looked back at the blonde and blinked when he saw him wave them both goodbye. Ichigo's eyes widened. He didn't want Naruto to leave. Naru. The sudden yell startled Naruto just as much as it did Isen. Looking over his shoulder, Naruto's sweat dropped when Ichigo abruptly bit his poor father in the arm for not letting him go and ran towards him, leeching onto his leg. What the? No, let go, you little brat. Grabbing the boy's shirt, Naruto tore him off his leg with a twitching irk in his eye. Taku. What are you doing biting your father like that? Scolding him, Naruto picked the pouting Ichigo up and quickly handed him back to Isen, who at that moment felt very confused. How do you know he's my dad? Mumbled frowning Ichigo, grabbing Naruto's hand and refusing to let go. Probably would be a bad idea to tell that he could sense their blood and distinguish the family connection. Instead, Naruto simply replied with the first thing that came to mind, you two are very alike. Ichigo showed a funny face, while Isen burst laughing. I know, huh? I always told my son that he is a mini duplicate of me, but he never believed me. How sad it was for a father like me. Naruto felt a bit weird. This man was acting too calm for his liking. Wasn't he wary? His son was just brought home by a stranger who had blood all over himself. Shouldn't that draw suspicion instead of joyous laughter? Then again, he just received his son back safe and sound. I guess a little bit of relief and joy shouldn't bother anyone. Well, anyways, whatever the hell that man's having in his head right now, I ain't sticking around to find out. I'm outta here. Decision made. Naruto pried his hands away from saddened Ichigo and turned tail. But before he made his escape from the busily babbling man, a sudden hand dropped on his shoulder and he froze. That was definitely not Ichigo holding him. Now where are you going? Please, come in. I would like to repay you for bringing my naughty little son back home. Giving him a fake smile, Naruto tried to deny the black-haired man's offer kindly. This isn't necessary. Besides, I need to be someplace else right now. Please excuse me. Nonsense. Gripping the blonde's shoulder tighter, Naruto suddenly felt a little unnerved. Not only was it seen in the way Ichigo's father's strong grip tightened on his shoulder, as if warning him that he's not going anywhere until he explains a few things, but it was also seen in the way the man grinned at him, a sinister attempt of a smile that might have fooled his son, but not Naruto. Won't be too nice to let the savior of my son get unthanked, don't you think? Savior? Curious blue eyes peered at the man who seemed to know a lot more than he let on. Does he know what happened in the park? Before that thought crossed his mind, Naruto gasped as he was suddenly jerked into the warm house and the doors shut after them. Making sure Ichigo wasn't hurting anywhere, Isen instructed him to go upstairs and get cleaned up. Once the boy was gone out of sight, Isen turned to Naruto. In his eyes Naruto didn't look dangerous at all. He didn't even look that impressive. His body wasn't very muscular, it was lean and thin build, pretty handsome might be the word. Though despite his outer appearance, Isen knew who this boy was very well. Maybe not till the last detail, but he knew enough to say that he was not human, nor was he a dead soul, and he also knew that he was wanted for the power he held. Standing as close to it as he was now, Isen could clearly sense that powerful pressure deep down within him. It was foul. Let me see that wound. Naruto's eyes snapped away from a large picture of an orange-haired woman placed in the middle of a wall and turned towards Isen, whose expression lost a bit of his previous softness and gained something of wariness and distrust. Clapping his hand over the bruise, Naruto sent the man a faithless gaze, at which Isen chucked. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm a doctor, it's my specialty. Please let me see how bad your stomach is. Naruto's brows furrowed. Aren't you even going to ask me how I got it? I might have a clue, but if you don't want to tell me I'll understand. Noting the blonde's confusion, Isen elaborated, you brought my son safely back home. I'm in debt to you. The least I can do now is help you heal and not pry for information about the state you're in. That might not be my business. Though I won't lie, I am curious. A bit grateful for the privacy and sense of understanding he received from the unknown man, Naruto still felt at unease. It wasn't that he was afraid of the man. No. What did bug him was the annoying nagging in his gut that told him to tell, not just the events that happened in the past few hours, but to tell this man everything he knew. Somehow, he was certain that this stranger won't tell a soul of his existence, even if he was forced to. And that was the most annoying thing. This is stupid. I don't even know this guy. Looking the man up and down, Naruto set his lips in a thin line. But on the other hand, I can't sense the slightest drop of menace from him. The man just seems too much of a saint in his heart. Maybe bit overprotective but caring nonetheless. And he doesn't look the type who sticks his nose further than necessary. Heh, I guess honest is the name. An honest saint. Such an inappropriate name for a human. Watching the dark-haired man lead him to the kitchen, Naruto's thought sank further, but then again, he can't be called a human, either. Breathing in the man's aura, Naruto huffed. He reeked from the power he was hiding, and it was very similar to those strange people Naruto saw in the park. Ah, so that's how Ichigo was able to see that guy. He has his father's unorthodox abilities. Pulling his jacket off, Naruto stared at the man from the corner of his eyes, not letting him out of his sight. Is your son gifted? Isen's body stilled for a second. Whatever do you mean by gifted? He asked, reaching out for a medical kit in one of the kitchen cupboards. He has a special ability that can show him things others don't see. Oh? That's so? Frowned at the man's indifference, who obviously tried to hide his image with fake disregard, Naruto stopped beating around the bush and decided to hit him straight. The ability your son possesses is very similar to your own. Those strange things, if I can call them otherworldly people, or maybe monsters as your son calls them, you can see them too. The fact that it wasn't a question unnerved Isen. He knew from the beginning what the blonde was talking about and where he was going with this. He just never thought that this Naru, which is what Ichigo called him, would be able to see through him so clearly without even being in his company that long. No wonder Soul Society is searching for him. Isen regarded the blonde seriously. Who are you? Naruto arched a humorous brow. Did he really mean who, or was it an unstated what? Are you asking for my name or my kind? Smirking, Isen crossed his arms. By the looks of it, I'm not entirely sure you'll trust me with your name now. Naruto cracked a smirk himself. The man defers respect. You already heard the basis of my name from your son. But I have nothing to hide. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. As for my kind, be it evil or be it good, I guess I can be something in between. It depends on how you look at it. What do you mean? Turning his head to the side, Naruto didn't answer Isen's question and instead changed the topic. That poster on the wall. Is that Ichigo's mother? Frowning at the abrupt diversion, Isen focused back on the medical kit. Yes, her name was Misaki. Seeing the painful image the issue brought towards the man, Naruto chose to drop the subject and took off his shirt. Looking down at his bleeding stomach, Naruto finally decided to chance it and tell Isen what happened to him and his son. Besides, he needed to have someone who could tell him about this new world he was in and what trust can be given without one in return. I got this wound from a man whom I've been fighting in the park not too far from here. His powers and abilities weren't something I've ever encountered before. And his looks didn't even come close to this town's people. A bit surprised at the sudden honesty and start of the tale, Isen couldn't help but ask, so you're a fighter? Among something else, you could say that. But don't get me wrong, I never thought of myself as a bad guy. I didn't say that. But you were thinking it. Ignoring the man's guilty look, Naruto continued, anyway, during the time of our fight, your son came by. I have no idea what he was doing there, but he could see that man whom others could not. I don't suppose it's common for this world's people to see such things as flying people. Pulling out ointment and bandages, Isen hummed as he thought of something the boy said. The way the blonde pronounced the word world sounded as if he himself was telling that he was not from Earth. You're talking as if you're yourself from another space or something. Aren't you native? Naruto caught the man's gaze and dropped the jutsu from his hand, revealing skinny clawed digits. Ignoring the other's gasp, Naruto pressed his nail over the wound. Isen was amazed. The opened wound began hissing and healing close, leaving no scarring behind. It was a completely different healing method from those he had seen, even in Soul Society. By your reaction I guess I'm not. Naruto pointed out, his healed gash being the sign to that. Either way, have you ever come in contact with such a thing as universal portal? Well, not as a realistic possibility. Sure, this world is connected to something that's, how to place it, out of the ordinary and driven by dimensions of the sort, but not entirely the universe itself. Okay, wait a minute. What you're trying to say is that you actually come from a completely different universe. Naruto leant back in the wooden chair with a smile. You seem like a smart man. I hope you will keep this secret only between us. Understanding the hidden warning and the unstated confirmation that Naruto was indeed from a world entirely different to his, Isen had to laugh. He was just as amused as he was astounded. Don't offend me, boy. Boy. Isen paid no mind to the accusing hiss as he proceeded. I might like to brag and gossip, and the offer itself sounds tempting enough to squeal, but I'll never tell on something this serious. I'm not that kind of a man. By the way, Isen's the name. Isen Kurasaki. Grabbing the man's hand, Naruto shook it but did not waver in his expression. Wouldn't be wise to call me boy, Isen-chan. I'm not as young as I look, nor as young as you. A skeptic eyebrow shot up. Isen's eyes carefully examined Naruto's whole form. He couldn't be older than 20. Oh. And how old might that be, Uzumaki-san? About 5,000. House nearly exploded from Isen's bursting guffaw. He called laughter. Glaring at the man and leaning his cheek against his fist, Naruto did his best to contain his patience. Silently hoping Isen gags, Naruto waited for him to stop this laughing disease that lasted for over a minute already. Catching a glimpse of Naruto's unamused expression, Isen coughing laughter quickly turned into shock-filled choking as he finally understood that Naruto was not joking. After hitting his chest and lungs free of too much air, Isen wheezed out, "Tell me you're kidding. Why don't you choke already?" hissed Naruto. "Now hold on. If that's true, then my god. You're ancient." A vein snapped and Naruto's cool posture exploded. Eek. Dodging a scalpel and a few needles Naruto grabbed from the med kit and flung at him, Isen jumped behind the table and shouted nervously, "Jay joking, I was just joking." Hahaha. DSKing as he heard paddling footsteps descend the stairs, Naruto sank back into the chair. Ichigo ran into the room, all fresh and cleaned and sparkling. Sparkling himself at his heroic son, who came to save him from the needle scalpel breathing throwing dragon, Isen beamed, not missing the way Naruto's hand transformed back into presentable appearance. Quickly, he snatched the med kit from the murderous demon and hid it away. Definitely no more need for this. Climbing onto a chair with a blushing smile on his cheeks, Ichigo dangled his feet and shyly glimpsed at Naruto from the corner of his eye. Trying not to make eye contact, Naruto groaned when he did anyway. "What?" he asked, a bit irritated at being stared at. "I like your whiskers, they're pretty." Isen started laughing again while Naruto completely lost control of his voice. None ever complimented his whiskers, he himself even hated them in the past, thinking of them as something repulsive that would always separate him from being normal. Thank you. Coughing away the stubborn blush, Naruto then looked down at his chest and cursed himself for being in such an indecent state and in front of a child. Even though the child himself would probably grow to share the same build as him, still, somehow it made him feel uncomfortable. While Naruto went searching for his clothes, Ichigo's eyes dropped onto an interesting-looking tattoo in the middle of the blonde's stomach. It looked like a circling whirlpool with incomprehensible writing surrounding it. Dad. Can I get a tattoo like that too? Please. Huh? Please. Isen's endless laughter boomed even louder while Naruto swore and covered his stomach with an uncomfortable expression. Apparently that tattoo was somewhat of a touchy subject for him, as Isen noticed. Sure son. At Ichigo's beaming eyes Isen couldn't withstand a tease. When you're 30 years old. Odd. Waving his hand, Isen ushered pouting Ichigo to go check on his sisters. Watching his boy clumsily stumble up the stairs, Isen felt his heart warm up. I haven't seen Ichigo this happy for days now. He looks completely changed. Dropping his discarded jacket over his shoulders, Naruto didn't feel too interested. Yeah, well, I'm happy for ya. Rubbing his chin in thought, Isen then studied Naruto up and down, as if searching for an answer to his question. You know, there's something about you that brings light to Ichigo's eyes. I think he likes you. Something in the distance of Naruto's mind broke and he looked at the man with unsettled eyes. What do you mean like? Lost at the question, Isen blinked. What do you mean, what do I mean? Just like I said, Ichigo is starting to like you. Like a brother who likes his older brother, you know. Staring at the man as if he was crazy, Naruto shook his head and hastily picked up his dirty, damp shirt. Whatever. Look, I think I should go. Go? Why? When I still have so much to ask. Why so suddenly anyway? Was it something I said? Shaking his head, Naruto tightened his grip around the cotton material. It's getting late and I don't want to keep any more of your time. Looking down at his watch, Isen noted that it was indeed pretty late, but not for people like them. A loud thunder blast suddenly disrupted his thoughts, and he looked over to Naruto, who was trying to hide his grimace as he slipped his hands through the wet jacket. What was up with that reaction he caught in Naruto's eyes? Was it because he mentioned Ichigo or was it because of that last statement? Isen crossed his arms with a pondering frown. Well, whatever it was, it sure looked like Naruto saw something that frightened him and he had no clue how to get away from it. Well, hell if I'm letting him go now. Not when he has practically brought my son back to life. A sneaky plan formed in Isen's head. Naruto. Do you have a place to stay? Naruto froze. Kuzo looking to the side, Naruto's eyes reflected the lightning that tore through the heavy sky, rain covering the view outside the windows in pouring streams. He didn't like it when Isen mentioned that Ichigo liked him. For Naruto it never ended well when someone got too attached to him, especially when they didn't even see him. Ever since Kyuubi and his merging began, with each passing century Naruto saw himself change further and further away from a normal human. Also, living somewhat of a cursed life, it was never a pleasant experience when it was intermingled with such things as love or friendship. Bonds that could not last have become a nightmare to Naruto. Someone who's used to living a long life, the appeal of such emotions had diminished with time. That's not what he came here for. He did not come to look for something that'll be crushed or taken away from him again. Another flash of lightning snapped Naruto out of his thoughts and towards the present issue. Then again, an opportunity of a free shelter is too much of a dumb luck to miss in this horror of a universe. Besides, it's not like something'll change in just a few hours of my stay. Hands full with spare sheets and extra nightwear, Naruto stared at the neat room, or rather the hospital room, equipped with a comfy bed and medical accessories. It's not much, but I hope it'll do fine. And I assure you, the bed's quite comfy, said Isen. Why are you doing this? Naruto was not too sure about the man's nature and abrupt hospitality, especially when he was wary and distrustful of him not but minutes ago. Aren't you afraid of me? Looking down at the short blonde, Isen gave him a kind smile, which in his opinion explained everything. Lowering his head, Naruto whispered a strained thank you Isen. Chuckling, the wiry man patted Naruto on the shoulder and willed him a good night's sleep before exiting the hospital room and leaving Naruto alone with a promise to talk more in the following morning. Making his bed, Naruto dropped his dirty clothes on the floor and made a quick trip towards the shower, which Isen had pointed to him earlier. Putting on Isen's lent night pants, needing to tie them tight around his waist so they wouldn't drop, Naruto finally climbed into the bed and was nearly out like a light. Though just when he was about to enter his dreamscape for the first time since his arrival, a silent squeak of the door disturbed all illusions and his eyes snapped into focus. The door to the room was ajar. Looking to the side, his eyes softened some as well as narrowed some when a small figure tiptoed into the room and climbed into his bed. It was Ichigo. Shadowing his eyes away from the child, Naruto watched as Ichigo silently pulled the sheets up and climbed on top of him. Trying not to hiss or growl at the brat who dared walk on him, Naruto pretended to be asleep while he watched the boy finally settle on his chest and pull the sheets over them, quickly falling asleep. Groaning, Naruto ran a hand through his blonde locks and glared at the sleeping pipsqueak. Why are you so attached to me, you little bug? Just because I saved you does not allow you to think I'm your damn guardian now. Damn it, you don't even know me. You have an interesting aura about you. Suddenly said a voice from the door and Naruto looked towards the smiling house owner. Children, almost like little pups, can sense it. He is drawn to it. I'm not a mother dog, Isen. I don't want him getting drawn to it. Angrily whispered Naruto and grabbed Ichigo's night shirt, about to pull him off, but a meek whimper stopped that action and Naruto grit his teeth at the boy, unable to force his hand to move anymore. Erg. Why me? Had best not fight it, Naruto. I'm not too sure why it's actually you he's suddenly so attached to, but, as I already said and am still confirming, it seems that Ichigo likes you. Oh, I feel so jealous. Brushing a fake tear from his eyes, Isen blew his nose. Anyway, you'll just have to deal with it from now on. From now on? Glaring at Isen, Naruto was about to throw a night lamp at him, screw politeness, but sadly, the chuckling man quickly ran away before he even tried. What the hell's up with this world? Moaning, Naruto covered his eyes. I can't believe this is happening to me. What do you mean they couldn't find it? That's exactly what they meant. Shrugging at Mayuri Kuritsuchi's displeased hisses, Chikushiro Mukitake retold his subordinates gathered information. They think your scanners are rusted. There was nothing they found in the human world. Your team is what's rusted. There's nothing wrong with my scanners. Boy. Will you stop with the yelling already? Cleaning his right ear, Kenpachi Zaraki flicked his fingers. Don't drive too deep, Frankenstein, otherwise you'll get that finger stuck in there. Did you just make a sound, alien? Sighing from his seat, Yamamoto was tempted enough to roll his eyes as two of the most scandalous captains began falling into another violent aversion between one another. What a spectacular group of divisionism I'm running. Sir, I think we should check the area one more time. Kuritsuchi and his group had never made a single mistake in their field. And the being we're looking for is said to have a very high amount of power. I don't think it'd be wise to just leave this matter unsolved and let it fall into someone else's hands over a simply misleading. The head captain agreed. Can I leave this to you? Sir. Nodding, Chimjurm Sasuke was ready to leave. I'd like to participate in the search as well. The 6 participants' voice spoke up. Tuning down their verbal bickering, Kenpachi and Mayuri quickly took note of the conversation as the captain of the 6th division stepped forward. Very well. Letting his red eyes halfway open, the oldest captain of Gate 13 looked over the rest of the gathered men. Anyone else would like to volunteer? Yawning loudly, Naruto stretched out his limbs and moaned as few of his bones cracked. I think I just had the most peaceful sleep of the century. Brushing his eyes, he looked around the white room and sat up. He jumped in slight startle when a sudden weight dropping onto his thighs. Looking quickly down, Naruto sighed with an irritating scowl. Damn brat, sleeping the whole night on me. The nerve picking the soundly slumbering Ichigo up, Naruto hesitated a bit before placing him under the bed covers and rolled out of the mattress. Peeking between window curtains, Naruto deducted it must be around 5 in the morning based on the rising sun. The streets were still silent though. Strange. Must be a very calm neighborhood here. Hearing a small hitch, Naruto glanced back at the child curling tightly around his sheets. He wondered if perhaps Ichigo was feeling cold and he should go and keep the child warm, but dismissed the absurd thought with a harsh shake of his head and went to gather his clothes instead, which he then realized weren't in the room. Now what the hell? Where's my wardrobe? Looking down at himself, Naruto groaned since he had nothing except those big sweepants he borrowed from Isen and rubbed his neck uncomfortably, guessing he'll just have to go as indecent as he was. Well, this is inconvenient. Following the smell of cooking breakfast filling the entire house, Naruto soon found himself nearing the kitchen, which as expected was occupied by humming Isen. With a light tap against the wall, Naruto quickly got the man's attention. Top of the morning to you, Naruto. How did you sleep? Thank you, I slept well. Rubbing the side of his elbow awkwardly, Naruto looked around the warm kitchen. Now that he got a better look at it, it was quite lovely, he guessed. Sensing the uncomfortable stiffness of his guest, Isen waved him over. Please, don't hesitate. Come in, come in. Sit down. Make yourself at home. By the way, I took the liberty of washing your clothes. They're in the dryer right now. Hope you don't mind. They'll be soft and clean in no time. Ah, thanks, mumbled Naruto, not exactly too sure what the hell this dryer was. Don't mention it. After yesterday it's the least I can do to repay you. Placing his home-cooked waffles on a plate, Isen handed them to Naruto. Feel free to help yourself. This is all really unnecessary. Totally uncomfortable with the situation, Naruto fidgeted in his seat. The feel and warmth of a welcoming hospitality he was given unnerved him. He wasn't used to it. Especially from weird men he just met hours ago. Ichigo is just a small kid. I'm sure anyone else would have done the exact same thing in my place. You don't have to thank me so much. Isen's smile dropped a little. No, they wouldn't have. Naruto ceased his pocking on a burned waffle. What do you mean? What I mean is that it's a rare occasion for people to risk their lives for another. Not everyone's kind enough to do what you did. Besides, not all people in here are able to see what we see, which makes it into an even rarer occasion than it already is. Thinking back to those 2 people he met in the park, back to Luppy and Isen and Ichigo in particular, Naruto wondered what exactly they could be counted as. Do people like you have a name in general? A name? You said not all people can't see what you can. Does that mean that there are more of those like you? With equal abilities? Yes, there are. Too many in fact. Laughed Isen, flipping the next waffle. Not too sure what was so funny, Naruto repeated his question. So, what are you named as? Wizards. Oracles. Seers. Shaking his head, Isen flashed Naruto a proud grin. Soul Reapers. Or otherwise known as the Death Gods. Deeply interested, Naruto sank into the chair as Isen began telling him all about the unearthly secrets that were hidden behind the little town known as Karakura, the opposite side of the so-called Soul Society. Picking his 12th or 13th waffle, Naruto felt his mind spin around in circles as he tried to recall everything the man told him about an hour ago. Ria, Zan what? Nearly half of that he had forgotten already. TMI. Forget it. I'd be better off understanding this man's logic than this puzzle. Opening his mouth, Naruto's poor waffle nearly slipped from his fingers when a loud wail suddenly tore through the entire house. What the hell was that? Tuckling, Isen turned the stove off. Looks like my darling little daughters are awake. Dropping his apron to the side, he excused himself and went upstairs. That's right, he has daughters. Pretty loud ones at that. Pushing brown-black waffles aside, Naruto got off the chair and went up the stairs, curious to see the two rascals. As he neared the second floor, he noticed a small shadow creeping silently behind him. A tick mark was quick to appear on his forehead and he ducked, dodging a sudden flying orange blur that flew over his head. "Aitai!" Ichigo yelled in pain as he missed Naruto and fell to the floor. Biting back a snigger, Naruto crossed his arms and scolded, "Bakabozu. What did you think you were doing?" Outing, Ichigo crossed his own arms and turned him his back, shooting his nose up high. "Nothing," he mumbled. Shaking his head, Naruto couldn't hold his laughter any longer, which only made Ichigo blush in even deeper embarrassment. Really? Are all this world's kids this quaint? Such childish behavior dimly reminded Naruto of his time when he was young and could spend days jumping around with other kids that grew to like him. Smiling at the warm memory, Naruto then quickly admonished himself when he realized what he's doing. "Stop it. That's all in the past now. There is nothing to hold on to anymore." Frowning down at still pouting Ichigo, Naruto inwardly growled at his meddling thoughts. He didn't need a reminder, he knew what he was doing. Still feeling somewhat guilty, Naruto approached the child anyway. "Screw this. I'll be out of this house in less than an hour. And it's not like I'm going to see him again." Winning heart over mind or mind over heart, he did not know. Naruto grabbed offended Ichigo under his armpits and allowed himself to pick him up. The young Kurasaki's lips quickly broke into a huge grin and he hugged Naruto around the neck, glad to finally get the blonde's attention. "All better now?" Receiving a gleeful nod, Naruto sighed and took them towards the room where the whimpers and wails came from. Pushing the ajar door gently with his foot, Naruto peered in to see Isen trying to rock two loud babies back to sleep. "I've tried everything to calm them down, and nothing works. They've never been this loud before." Looking hopelessly at Naruto, Isen almost cried. "Maybe something's bothering them. Like me." Stepping closer to peer into the crib, halfway expecting the wails to increase, Naruto blinked and Isen blinked as well when the two girls suddenly stopped wailing and stared up at Naruto in wonder, like seeing a big glowing sparkle. "Maybe indeed." Isen gasped. "How do you do that? Moo, have I failed at being a good father?" Isen broke down wailing himself. "While my darling babies don't love their daddy anymore." Naruto rolled his eyes with a groan. "Not you too. Be a man and get a hold of yourself. I'm sure they're just happy to see Ichigo, not me." Isen suddenly stopped crying and looked up with a huge grin. "Say, this gives me a neat idea." Naruto felt a shiver go down his spine when that huge grin landed on him. He was afraid to ask but did anyway. "What idea?" "Since they all seem to like you so much, would you say if you and I make a little deal?" "What the hell is with this like you keep saying so much? And a deal?" Naruto felt nothing good of it when Isen started rubbing his hands together in a master plot. "You are looking for a place to settle, right?" "Yes. So? What of it? And since you're stuck in this world, you are going to look for a home, correct?" "Maybe." "Then what you say to this? I let you stay in my house as long as you want if you take care of my little babies while I work overtime," joyfully proclaimed Isen with a spring in his voice. The long pause dropped in the room before Naruto placed drowsing Ichigo in the vacant chair next to the crib and spun around. "Okay, that's it. I'm out of here." "Naruto." Dashing after the runaway blonde, Isen jumped over the stairs and tackled Naruto down before he made it to the main entrance. "Please, Naruto. I'm a desperate man who has 3 little kids who miss a motherly love. I just need someone to take care of them while I'm not home. And it's too bothersome to go to the neighbors and ask for their help again." "You perverted bastard. I'm no woman. In fact, you don't even know me. How can you just dump your children on some guy you barely met but 10 hours ago? Further than that, I know nothing about children to begin with." Jamming a foot in Isen's face, Naruto bared his canines, struggling to get the surprisingly strong man off of him. "Forget it." "But Naruto." "No." "But Naruto." "No." "But Naruto." "I said no." Hugging his son goodbye, Isen grinned as he then reached to give a hug to the fuming Naruto, but ended up with a punch in the face and a kick out of his house with a yell, "Get it over with. Bye my darlings. I'll see you soon." Shouting after himself, Isen skipped to his car and drove off. Gritting his teeth, Naruto slammed the doors shut and leant against them with a scowl. "Curse Isen and his you're breaking little kid's heart shit. Jeez. What the hell is wrong with me? Why the fuck did I agree in the first place?" Blinking up at mumbling Naruto madly grinding his teeth together, Ichigo tugged at his pants. "Naru. What?" Nervously fiddling with his fingers, Ichigo chewed on his bottom lip. "Will you take me out to get an ice cream?" he asked silently, afraid that Naruto will say no. "Ice cream? What the hell do I look like?" Flinching at Naruto's low hiss, Ichigo yelped and ducked his head. Seeing that he's scaring the poor thing, Naruto closed his flaming eyes and counted down to 10 no 100. "Sure, why not?" he finally said with a defeated sigh. Besides, I think I need a whiff of fresh air before I suffocate myself. Ichigo momentarily cheered up. Really? Yay. I'll go get my shoes. Yeah, you do that while I vent to myself and think of ways to kill your hyper father. God, what have I gotten myself into? This world stinks. Stepping through the dimension gateway leading into the human world, Kenpachi Zaraki sniffed the air in distaste. No one asked you to come, coolly stated by Akuya as he, Chmjurm and Chkshurm stepped from behind him. I don't recall ever asking for your opinion, Kichiki. Shut up before I kill you. HN. Cease this foolishness, warned Chmjurm, already having problems with the team balance. We haven't come here to watch you two fight. Yay. But we can easily fix that. This will have to wait, Kenpachi. I think I can feel its presence close by. Breaking hell before it rose, Chkshurm gestured to their right. You sense that? It's faint, but it's coming from over there. Having left two clones back in the house to watch over the girls, Naruto lay relaxed under a tree, fiddling with the freshly mowed grass in the park, gladly not inside the destroyed one, while Ichigo ran around kicking ball with other kids. Thankfully, none paid much attention to Naruto. Despite yesterday's incident, luckily there weren't people around who might have seen him the previous day. And, despite the clothes he was wearing, which were a size or two bigger on him, seeing that they were, of course, Isen's and the dryer had not returned his old clothes back anyways, making him look like a damn clown, or in Isen's words as a rapper, whatever the hell that meant, he seemed to blend in pretty well. Nibbling on a thin straw, Naruto followed the falling leaves and smiled when some of them fell onto his forehead every now and then. This reminding him of the past, when he used to train or simply fooling around with his friends. Yay, my old little friends, all those who died as they aged while he outlived their lives and went beyond, watching as one by one they came, and one by one they went. Cursed or blessed by the demon himself, Naruto was like an immortal spirit now. One that never grew and one that never aged, not anymore. Sighing, Naruto encircled his stomach and turned onto his left side to watch Ichigo kick the ball to one of the kids, before quickly running after them. Still young, still naive, just like I used to be. Can't fault him. It's a joy to be oblivious. Taking the straw from his mouth, Naruto breathed in the fresh breeze and suddenly froze. All movements of his body stilled as a tall shadow appeared behind him. It was not so much the size of the shadow as it was the scent in particular that got Naruto's nerves into cagey twists. The scent coming from the figure was almost the same as those two people in the park, whom Isen later described as soul reapers, however, this one felt more pressured and more dangerous. And having trust in Isen's words, for an insanely unreasonable reason, who told him to stay away from anything regarding soul reapers for the time being, Naruto guessed that's just what he'll have to do. Standing up, Naruto slowly turned around and looked up at a man of perhaps 3 meters. His movements, just like for those two before, disturbed the man, and he also turned towards him, but did not see him. How ironic, thought Naruto, things that normal people can't see the powerful soul reapers cannot. But then again, soon after his arrival to this world, he quickly found out that normal people could not see him once he's off the transformation jutsu, while the reapers apparently could. Weird, and that also made him wonder then how come Isen, who told him was an ex-soul reaper, could see him with and without his transformation jutsu placed on off. Well, that's just eccentric. Cocking his head to the side, Naruto smirked as he saw the sharp spike-haired man narrow his eyes, or rather one visible eye, and reach for his blade, taking it out and unknowingly lining it next to Naruto's middle. Kichiki. Do you see it? No more than you do, Zaraki, said a rich voice appearing behind Naruto's still form. I can swear it was right here, grumbled the man Naruto now knew went by the name of Zaraki. 2 more men appeared on Naruto's left and right side, now creating a small circle around him without even noticing it themselves. Rubbing the back of his neck, a handsome long white-haired man, fairly similar yet still opposite to that Kichiki guy, chuckled in embarrassment. My bad. I guess I was mistaken. I can no longer sense anything. Chmjurm heaved a dejected sigh, same here. Seems the Kuratsuchi-san really does need to adjust his surveillance gadgets. Don't jump to conclusions. Huffing at the 1st Division Lieutenant and the 13th Division Captain's hasty assumptions, Kenpachi smirked, bringing his Zanpakuto up, not realizing that it now stood right below Naruto's nose. I felt that thing too, not but seconds ago. So it's safe to assume that it's around here somewhere, just hiding from us, and hoping to play us for fools. Do you think it knows we're looking for it? Wondered Chkshurm. Ah. And it knows how to conceal itself, nodded by Akuya, turning his eyes towards the running and laughing children who had no ability to notice them standing there. But that didn't quite appear to be the case. Stopping in his run to catch a glimpse of Naruto, Ichigo's huge grin suddenly dropped when he saw 4 men similar to that one flying one, surrounding Naruto and pointing a dangerous weapon at him. Oh no. They're going to hurt him. No. Leave Naru alone. In despair, Ichigo suddenly screamed at the top of his lungs and kicked the ball at the bewildered reapers. Blood drained from Naruto's entire face as Ichigo shouted his name, and the 4 reapers quickly snapped their attention towards the little idiot charging them. Of course, it didn't take long for them to realize why Ichigo was shouting at them and who he was ordering to leave alone and, most importantly, where that someone was hiding. "I'm dead. Fuck. It's in between us," yelled Zaraki and brought his heavy blade downwards where he supposed the demon was, and he was right. Shimada. Ducking in time and jumping in between Kenpachi's spread legs before the four blades crashed onto him, Naruto flinched at the slight scratch they still managed to inflict on his leg and dashed towards Ichigo. Grabbing him into his hands, Naruto quickly jumped into the trees and out of sight. All children in the playground stared wide-eyed and shouted in excitement after him, thinking of that as a sort of stunt trick pulled by Ichigo and his new friend, which was the reason why Naruto really hated them right now. Due to the brats clapping and pointing fingers towards the direction he was hiding, the Soul Reapers quickly found his location. "Fuck. The damn world has devils for children." Swearing, Naruto began running for his life. "Don't let him get away," yelled Chimgerm, giving pursuit. Looking down at shaken Ichigo, Naruto cursed the child's wild hair color and pushed his chakra around him. Hopefully his genjutsu would be enough to conceal Ichigo from the Reaper's eyes as well as any others. Thankfully it worked. Fucking demon. He hid that child too. Cursed Kenpachi, unable to catch a glimpse of the demon due to the child's sudden disappearance. "Don't fuss, as long as he's moving we can still get him," reminded Yuki Take, relying on the demon spreading energy through its movements. Then Ichigo clung tighter onto Naruto's shirt as he felt fear grow over the thought of those men catching them. Shushing him down, Naruto shot a quick glance over his shoulder. The Reapers were getting closer. Kuzo. Jumping from the trees, Naruto leaped over the bushes that separated the park from the main street and ran into the freeway. Loud screeches and sounds of running cars suddenly slid past as Naruto landed in the middle of the free road. "Naru." At the boy's sudden scream, Naruto quickly turned around and gasped as he saw one of the metallic masses dashing right at him with a loud honk. "The fuck is it doing?" Seeing that as nothing other than an advancing threat, on instinct, Naruto slammed his fist right across the speeding car's hood, crashing the surface to bits and forcing the car's body mass go over them and crash with a damageable slam behind. Hovering Ichigo with both hands, Naruto quickly jumped over another fast skidding car before sidestepping the next one that screeched by and crashed into the other coming from the opposite direction. It was becoming too heated. The line of them was just endless. And on top of that, the Reapers were not far behind. Sparing frightened Ichigo a quick glance, Naruto caught sight of a huge cargo truck driving past and took the opportunity. Jumping high, he landed onto its hood. The truck took them away from the hectic scenario. People were staring from all sides, pointing fingers, shouting, and screaming, though none of that really mattered, as the main problem soon appeared next to the main road of the damaged, jammed-up cars and yelling people. Kneeling down, Naruto calmed his rushed breath as the mass they were on took them further and further away from the indelicate scene he unintentionally created. Searching from side to side, the four Reapers tried locating any clues that would lead them to the demon. Alas, none were found. They lost him. Fuck. Putting his Zanpakuto away, Kenpachi growled in disappointment. "And right when I was getting a thrill out of this. It might have gotten away from us yet, but at least now we're certain of its existence," noted Chimgerm. "Did anyone get a good glimpse of that boy it took? He might be the key that'll lead us to the demon," Byakuya pointed out. Exchanging looks with others, Yuki Take rubbed his temples in defeat. "Honest. Preferably. No. Just as I thought. Though I do recall orange. Are you all sure it didn't take the kid just to eat it later?" Heaving deep puffs of air through his nose, Naruto sighed once he was sure no one's following them anymore. "This is starting to get really backbreaking." Feeling the metallic box rapidly slowed down next to a big apartment building, Naruto spotted an opened window in one of the apartments. Taking the chance, he quickly jumped off the truck and stealthily slipped through the window. Making sure no one was inside the room nor the apartment, Naruto slumped against the wall. "There we go. We can rest here for a minute." "Nah, Naruto. Hush now. It's okay." Hugging the scared boy closer, Naruto patted the boy's back to calm him down, and himself for that matter too. "They're gone. You're safe. We're safe. Okay." Shaking, Ichigo rubbed his moist eyes. "No, oh, I'm sorry Naru." "For what?" "But it was my fault. They almost hurt you because I wanted to go to that park. If I hadn't asked you to take me there, none of this would have happened." Naruto wanted to laugh and yell at the same time. What a way to make things better by blaming everything on yourself. Do you always blame yourself for what happens in life, child? Who else is there to be blame? No one. And that includes you as well. You know, Ichigo, leaning the boy against his hip, Naruto carefully brushed his eyes from unshed tears. In life, there are two roads we choose to walk, but you can never guess which one of them is going to turn out good and which one bad. Sometimes they can be both as good as they can be bad. Just because you decided to make a turn to the left and it turned out to be a foolish move does not momentarily mean that the right turn would have turned out better. Perhaps it could have even gone worse than the one you made to the left. You cannot predict what happens in life, child, or what difficulties might stand in your way. But you can always outlive them and outfight them, right? And no feeling of blame will ever help you or anyone else mend the problem. Do you understand that? A shy shaky nod was all Naruto needed. Right. Now how about you give me that pearly smile of yours? Giggling through a sniff, Ichigo hid his smile behind his fists coyly. Now what is that? A cheap replica? Come on. Throwing Ichigo suddenly into the air, Naruto grinned when the boy quickly broke into joyous laughter. There we go. Now that's what you call a smile. Now then, how about we get out of here before the house owner discovers our little break-in, nah. Nodding with a full-blown smile now, Ichigo embraced Naruto's neck and rested his head on his shoulder. Naru. I like you, Naru. A painful contraction suddenly slammed against his ribsage, and Naruto stiffened for a second. Why did you have to say that? Ruthlessly shaking off all anxiousness and crushing all hopes of an understanding to those loud words, Naruto exited the foreign room by forcefully breaking the lock off its hinges as he went. A bit hurt after not receiving any comeback to his confession, Ichigo looked up at Naruto's emotionless face. Naru. Are you? Before he was able to utter his question, he felt a sharp pressure in the back of his head and his mind suddenly shut itself down as it fell into soothing unconsciousness. Sorry, Ichigo, but I can't allow you to drive my mind with childish emotions. I'm not something to be liked. Drumming his fingers against the armrest of a comfy chair he was sitting in, Naruto's eye twitched in irritation when he finally heard the entrance door slam open. I'm home, my lovelies. Great. Just when I was starting to think I should fly to your work and stab you in the face. Glaring at the clock that read 23:59, Naruto hissed under a silent whisper, though loud enough for Isen to actually hear something. What's that? Peeking around the corner, Isen couldn't help but awe if he ignored Naruto's murderous eyes, that is. The blonde nanny was in the living room, deeply sunken into the plush chair with one hand supporting his cheek and the other tearing the chair's poor leather with his nails. Though none of that really got Isen's attention as he cooed affectionately at Ichigo, who was sleeping curled into Naruto's lap, Karen drooling sleepily from atop of her perch on Naruto's head, and giggling and awake Yuzu bouncing on Naruto's crossed leg that he kept swaying just to prevent her from blowing his ears out with all the crying. Oh my sweetness, that's just so damn cute. Now you sit right there. I'm going to take a picture. Nearly dropping poor Yuzu, Naruto roared after the giggling man, Isen, don't you dare. Stupid Isen, stupid camera, stupid universe. Stomping to the second floor, Naruto's patience wavered under each wail coming from downstairs. Stop crying already. None of this would have happened hadn't you taken that damn picture, you ass. Seriously, what the hell am I supposed to do with him? Slamming the twins' bedroom doors open, Naruto placed still giggling Yuzu into the crib and pulled Karen off his head to lay her beside her hype sister, who was clapping and curling her chubby fingers at him. What do you want? No. I'm not picking you up. Sleep. No. Stop staring at me. I don't talk, baby. Keep your spit to yourself, I don't want it. Will you go to freaking bed already? Glaring at the jumping girl, shaking her head as if understanding him enough to have the gall to oppose and laugh at him, Naruto cursed her lack of cooperation and lightly flicked her forehead, watching as the baby blinked before abruptly collapsing with a light bounce on the soft bed as she fell into a dreamy sleep. There. Now don't you wake up till morning, I need rest too. Hovering the girls carefully under their blankets, Naruto twitched irritably when he realized how soft he was acting and headed angrily towards Ichigo's room next. Exiting into the hall, Naruto could still hear Isen's cries over the camera he'd ruthlessly crushed using the man's head. Will you shut up? I can't pick the pieces. How could you do this to me? Rubbing his forehead, Naruto quickly walked into Ichigo's room and slammed the door closed, luckily that isolated at least some of the yells from that overgrown child downstairs. This universe and particularly this house is a freaking pain. The loudly emitted yawn suddenly brought Naruto out of his boiling mood and towards Ichigo, who was slowly waking up. About time too, though Naruto still wished he'd wake up when he was not around. After forcing Ichigo's mind to sleep just to prevent him from twisting his mind with that foolish affection of his, Naruto could only enjoy half an hour of blissful silence until the twins woke up and just as he arrived back too, tired and anxious. Man. Why me? No. Don't get up. It's night. Sleeper, I'm placing the damn sleeping jutsu on you too, threatened Naruto, covering Ichigo's eyelids with his two fingers. Naru, that you? No. Now sleep. Placing the boy under the bed covers, Naruto quickly tucked him in and prepared to leave, but the stickiness that was that child's hand just prevented him his blissful freedom. Blindly catching Naruto by his pants, Ichigo shyly asked him to stay, don't go. Looking at him over his shoulder, Naruto watched slightly confused as the boy's shoulders shook a bit and his chestnut eyes quickly averted Naruto's own, not daring to meet up after that statement, as if ashamed of his own words. Please, Naru, I don't want to be alone. Taken aback, Naruto glanced down at the small hand gripping his pants tightly. Clapping his teeth to withhold familiar feelings slowly waking up from deep within, Naruto reached out and gripped the boy's wrist. Ichigo was pleasantly startled by the sudden touch of that cold hand, yet very hurt when it released him, letting his hand drop down like an annoyance in the way. Without realizing, tears began gathering. Does that mean that Naru does not like me? Lowering his eyes, Ichigo balled his fingers around his sheets. Hurling his own fingers into fists, Naruto restrained himself from rubbing his chest as his heart tightened at the sight that brought so many distant memories so close to his own. And as soon as he saw a small tear slide down the side of the child's cheek, Naruto's restraints were lost. Alone, that word and that look was just too much of a key unlocking his distant childhood. Too painful and too familiar. Lowering his head, Naruto shadowed his glimmering eyes. Is that why you're always following me around, child? Because you fear the feeling of loneliness? But then what of your father, your sisters? Are they not enough to fill the hollow feeling in your heart? Smiling weakly, Naruto looked back at the boy. Or is that feeling something you think will never be understood unless a person knows what it feels like? Can you see it? Can you see your reflection in my eyes? By swallowing, Ichigo mastered up a fake smile. I'm sorry. You must be tired and I'm just keeping you away from rest. Suppressing a sniff, Ichigo tried hard not to become a burden and did his best to hide how weak he felt. I'm okay, really you can go, if you don't want to stay I understand. Lidding his eyes, Naruto knelt before the small boy and watched as he tried in vain to get rid of stubborn tears. All those barriers he was building suddenly seemed meaningless to Naruto. Nothing but a heart of a broken child stood before him, begging to be cared for. Pulling his hand up, Naruto hesitantly placed it on the orange head. Waiting till watery chestnut eyes met his, Naruto smiled. Do you want me to read you a story? It's been so long since Naruto had last seen so many striking emotions gather up in one's eyes before he was tackled into a huge hug. Naruto would forget about his vigilance and let those disturbingly warm emotions boil in his gut. He could allow himself that for a while. But only for a little while. Staring up at dimly lit ceiling of his currently occupied room, Naruto ran his fingers through messy orange tresses. 5 days, it's been 5 fucking days already. What am I still doing here? Yet a week almost passed, and somehow Isen made it possible for Naruto to stay for another day watching the brats. One part of the reason why he was still here was because Isen had rose a fit when he saw Naruto all over the news, and Naruto felt responsible for the problems he'd caused the man, while the other part said it was because Isen was becoming an ass. This time, without reason and long forgotten news, the blasted man had made sure to leave early, and to avoid direct contact with Naruto, he left a note for him, saying that he'll be working overtime again and will need someone to look after the kids, or as quoted, "Naruto, I'm leaving kids on you. Be back around 2 a.m. And with a roar, the letter met a ruthless fate of being torn to zillion pieces. Of course, Naruto could just ignore Isen's request and leave the kids to themselves, but nothing. Growled Naruto, refusing to admit anything. All that was needed to be known was that he didn't, and Isen should be grateful. Period. Reaching out for the watch situated on the night table, Naruto groaned and rubbed his eyes. Only 9 p.m. Man, but I feel so tired already. Sighing as another fit of wiggling and whimpering was drawn from the crib before him, Naruto outstretched his leg and pushed it lightly with his feet, rocking the twins back to sleep almost expertly now. Tired, stiffing a yawn, Naruto outstretched his hands and glanced down at the sleeping boy on his chest. I just don't get you, child. What on earth could be so interesting about me? As if knowing he's being talked about, Ichigo woke up and sleepily blinked up at his dear friend. Mornin' Naru. It ain't mornin', child. Still night. So go back to sleep. But I don't wanna, protested Ichigo, although that wide yawn of his told Naruto otherwise. No buts, he lectured, if you want to become strong and healthy, you'll go to bed now. Naru read me a story. A story? You want me to read to you again? But I already erg. Naruto gave up on arguing with the boy's pout and waved his hand. Fine. Give me what you want. Jumping down and exiting his sister's room, Ichigo quickly skipped somewhere down the hall before returning back with a rather thick book in hand. Arching a brow, Naruto took the book and flipped it while Ichigo made himself comfortable back in the blonde's lap. Shakespeare. What the hell is that? Pushing the doors silently open, Isen peeked into the room and smiled as he saw Naruto sitting comfortably in the chair while he read Ichigo some kind of a book under the light of just a single moon. Disturbed by distracting crack of the doors, Naruto's senses quickly perked back up and he looked away from the book, suddenly hearing light snores. Blinking, he stared down at the deeply dreaming Ichigo. Now when did you fall asleep on me? It was apparent that the child had long since been taken under the dust of Sandman, Naruto just didn't notice it. Turning the book over to read its cover one more time, Naruto found it amusing that is simple yet somewhat depressing, especially for a kid Ichigo's age. Why was he reading it to him again? Book could drive him away from reality so easily. How interesting. Placing the book onto the night table, Naruto felt a tug on his shirt and saw the small hand clutching it. Shaking his head with a pleased smile, Isen was about to close the door. Why is he doing this, Isen? Startled by the sudden addressing, Isen had to repress a silent yell when he saw Naruto no longer sitting in the chair, but standing in front of him and staring with those eyes which freakily glowed in the dark. Why is he doing what, Naruto? Naruto nodded towards the boy in his arms and the way his small fist curled around his shirt. Being always so close to me. Why is he so affectionate towards me when he barely even knows me? Isen gently shut the girl's bedroom door and gestured Naruto to accompany him downstairs. Tea. I don't drink tea anymore. Naruto put Ichigo back into his room before following Isen downstairs, though not before grabbing a stuffed animal from the shelf and handing it to the boy's searching hands. Sipping his tea, Isen watched as restless fingers of one unsettled Uzumaki constantly drummed over his crossed knee. Ichigo is naive. Still a child. And like any other child, he knows nothing about the real world. Nothing about the lies and danger lurking about. Glaring at the cup of water placed on the low table in front of him, Naruto rubbed his forehead as an overflow of emotions began battling within his head. He's always seeking me, trying to stay close, without even realizing the thing that I am and can do to him. All he sees right now is nothing but a lie. Rolling his eyes towards the silent man, Naruto asked furiously, why is he not afraid of me? Can't he feel it? He's your son and the inheritor of your power. Should he not know by now that I am not who I pretend to be? I don't see why it concerns you so much, Naruto. Last I recall, you told me you could care less what others think of you, least of all a mere child. Or smirking slyly, Isen hid his face behind the cup. Could it really be that you're actually starting to care what Ichigo thinks of you? Of course I do. Naruto's eyes widened at his own flying words. He didn't mean to say it out loud. Placing his teacup down, Isen turned to the depressed blonde in all seriousness. Naruto. Ichigo is my son. He as well as I both know that you're not evil. That's one of the reasons he trusts you. One of the reasons I trust you. He can tell. Why can't you just accept it and confront him about it? Something in Naruto's eyes darkened. Will he be able to tell the same if he confronts a demon, Isen? Naruto. Did you ever consider a possibility that despite who or what you are, Ichigo actually sees the true you behind all that? No matter the menacing aura or the appearance. Naruto's eyes slightly wavered under unresolved feelings before coldness overpowered them all. Bullshit. None can ever like a demon, Isen. Angry, Naruto stood from the sofa and walked over to the dark window. Nor he nor you really saw me in the beginning. How can you tell that he would actually look behind the appearance and see me if I showed him the thing that I am? Staring at Isen's reflection in the glass, Naruto frowned as the man lidded his eyes in silent sympathy, not saying anything back. Yes. Think of this as a scary story you tell your children to make them behave. Then take this story and make it into a reality. What then? Can you still tell me that he'll be able to look past that and see me for me, or will he look at me and scream in terror? Isen snorted at that. Naruto might not know it, but he knew of such a story. And that story actually bloomed into love. Who's really naive here? The child who fears of creatures at night, creatures that I look like, will never learn to see beyond, Naruto continued. He'll be too frightened. That's not true. What do you know? Not much. But I know Ichigo. He would never judge anyone by their appearance. That's not him. Even though still a small boy, Ichigo had seen lots of things. He is strong-willed and kind-hearted. He will believe and listen if you just give him a chance. Let him into your heart. Biting his lower lip, Naruto closed his eyes. I don't want to. Isen's cool dropped slightly. Why? What are you so afraid of? Me? Naruto shot him a crude smirk. Afraid? What am I afraid of? Lowering his eyes, Naruto pursed his lips. Of losing control. Of rejection. Of feelings. But mostly eyes. Eyes full of fear and hatred. Even the slightest chance of that happening, I'm afraid I'm tired of it, Isen. I do not wish to see those eyes anymore. Frowning in confusion, Isen gently asked, mindful of the fickle mood, what eyes, Naruto? Breathing in deep, Naruto shook his head. Nothing. It doesn't matter. Naruto. Are you okay? A bit worried at the abrupt loss of coherent words, Isen approached the still blonde and rested his hand on the other's shoulder. Startled by the touch, Naruto shrugged the hand away with a snap. I'm not letting him. I'm not, Isen. Ichigo must not know me. I'm already falling too deep into this stupid affection of his. No more. He will not know me more. Isen was saddened by the broken voice Naruto himself didn't even notice uttering. But can you live with this? He asked with a small smile. Flinching at the direct question, Naruto turned to stare back outside the window, unable to retort back. How long do you plan on keeping this up, Naruto? For how long are you going to hide yourself from him from us? Isn't it killing you inside? Resting his forehead against the cool surface of the glass, Naruto tightly clenched his eyes, unable to hold his long since forgotten emotions from stirring inside him. I'm not letting him, was his only whisper, just to prove to himself that he was not giving in. Sighing, Isen ran his fingers through his dark hair. Why is he being so stubborn? Yes, I agree, children are foolish. Especially when young. However, sometimes they know and can see far more than any grown-up is able to. Because of their innocence and pure-heartedness, they will not care who or what a person is, as long as they feel safe around them. That is enough for them. And Ichigo is no different in that matter. Believe me or not, he will understand. Closing his eyes in stubborn denial, Naruto refused to let Isen's words get to him. Dropping his shoulders under a tired breath, the black-haired man went to gather the dishes, though did not give up on seizing the moment of the dropped silence between them. You know, after the death of Masaki, Ichigo changed. He was no more the carefree and happy child I knew him as. That day, he felt it his responsibility to bear the blame of his mother's death. I struggled greatly convincing him otherwise. But because of that blame he made a vow to always protect those closest to him. He even went beyond by offering help to any misfortunate soul he met on his way, known or unknown. It didn't matter to him who or what the person was, as long as he could help them. Chuckling at the memory, Isen continued while Naruto kept quiet. But behind all that shield of fearlessness and adorable power he built, I knew there was a boy who searched for the same type of protection and sanctuary he offered others. And after long, I believe he finally found it in you. Shocked blue eyes looked at Isen's dark ones. Although Ichigo denies it, I know what my son needs. Unfortunately, I could never fully provide him with that. He needs someone who can understand, someone he can talk to without feeling pressured, someone to feel safe with. And I believe he feels that someone to be you. Baring his fangs far enough for Isen to see, Naruto hissed in a shaking voice, "It's not me, Isen. I cannot give him something like that. I don't want to." Turning away, Naruto was shocked to feel his eyes suddenly sting. "Stop this. I don't want to remember how it feels to be needed. To have bonds only to lose them all over again. I shouldn't even be here. This is all a mistake." Bowing his head, Isen shrugged with a small grin. "I don't know why you're stuck here or why it's you Ichigo chose either. All I can do is guess. And what I'm guessing is that you have similar hearts. Or there is something in Ichigo that only you can understand and vice versa. Like a certain will to protect someone just because you feel it's the right thing to do." Isen was pleased when he saw Naruto's eyes slightly widen in the window's reflection, though he didn't comment on the matter. "Who knows? Perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps I'm right. But I'm more than certain that all this you being here, Ichigo's attachment to you, this is not a mistake." Saying nothing else, Isen went into the kitchen to clean the dishes before heading for bed. By the way. Stopping next to Naruto on his way out, Isen asked, "Do you know what the word Ichigo means, Naruto?" Staring outside the dark window, a sad frown merged Naruto's face. Patting the blonde on the shoulder, Isen then decided that enough was said and went for the exit. "Good night, Naruto." Waiting till footsteps faded away completely, Naruto slumped his forehead against the cold glass and gazed at the silent, enlightened streets of the neighborhood. Could this analogical will to protect really be the cause that drew them so close to one another? If so, how long till it ends? Standing in the doorway of Ichigo's room, Naruto watched a little lump steadily rise and fall under the pile of soft bed sheets. Isen is wrong, perishing all foolishly wishful thoughts before they leached onto his heart. Naruto bit back at Isen's previous words still circling in his head. "You can't make anyone like a demon and seeking protection. From me?" Glaring at the peaceful sleeper, Naruto shut the door none too gently and marched back to his own room. "You idiot, Isen." Falling on the soft matters, Naruto tucked his hands behind his head and blindly took notice of a small crack in the middle of the ceiling which he proceeded glaring at. "What protection? Protection that I can't know, don't want to give." What Isen didn't know was that he had spoken everything Naruto already know. The problem, however, was simply the fact that Naruto did not wish to accept it. "How can I make you understand this, Ichigo? I'm a liar. I'm not safe. I'm not someone you should trust. And I'm definitely not someone you should like." Clenching his teeth, Naruto covered his eyes as he repeated this mantra over and over again. He had to repeat it because if he didn't, he would have no other reason to break this tenacious bond. Was it so bad to be so selfish? Staring at shimmering stars through the opened window of his bedroom, Naruto tried to ignore another shudder crawling down his spine when a drop of drool fell onto his back again. That little imp, after a few hours well into the night, Ichigo had sleepily found his way back into Naruto's room and decided to give him a bone-breaking back massage before finally settling down and falling asleep on top of him. Sighing lightly, Naruto tried to calm down and think. Obviously, things were just not working out for him. No matter how many times he tried to poison, curse or twist the boy's mind and turn it into hatred, Ichigo stayed the same. And what's worse, Naruto's emotions were starting to respond to that. That blasted emotion. So persistent, so annoying and so very sweet. TCH. Bitterly, Naruto pushed his face into the pillow. He could feel it clearly, he was becoming attached. This has already gone too far. Carefully maneuvering Ichigo from his back and onto the bed, Naruto sat up and eyed the small human who soon began fidgeting from the loss of extra heat. Placing his hand on the boy's forehead, Naruto helped Ichigo calm down and eased his unrest to a peaceful sleep. Remain strong, Ichigo, and stay safe. Rising gently from the bed, Naruto gave one more glance to the sleeping boy before he backed up towards the door and silently exited the room. Stopping in front of the twins' room, Naruto could hear Isen's loud drowsing there. The man was very weary. Needing to hold 3 jobs to support his family apparently wasn't as easy as Naruto had imagined. And I'm only going to make it worse for him feeling like a total ass. Naruto still couldn't say that was enough of a reason to change his mind. They should be okay without him. Besides, with his being he could do not as much good as he could do bad anyway. Or so he tried telling himself. Rising with the sun coming to peek through the curtains, Ichigo outstretched his waking limbs before curling back into the warm comfort of the bed. It was still too early for him to be thinking of getting up, and he doubted Naruto was up yet either, which was proven wrong when the absence of the other's body was quickly noticed. Jumping straight up, Ichigo looked around the empty room. It suddenly felt unusually chilly in it. The white walls and hollow corners were rapidly becoming too cold and narrow as they seemed to shrink and close in on him. The actual light and warmth they used to emit for the past month due to presence of a particular blonde were gone. Everything the room's aura once held suddenly seemed gone. Gripping the sheets close, Ichigo bit his lip. He already knew what it meant without anyone telling him. Naruto was gone. 3 years later, the vibrating ring from his cell phone broke Naruto's train of thought. Fishing the device out of his pocket, he flipped it open. Sheesh, it had taken him weeks to finally figure out how it worked. Looking at the screen for some time, he debated between 2 options. Answer or decline. Of course, he already knew who it was before actually looking at the ID, so was the reason for his hesitation. I hate you, conscience grumbling to himself, he finally pressed the answer button. What do you want? No way. You actually picked up yes. Naruto. I'm desperate. Jerking the phone away from his poor ear, Naruto hissed. What the hell is it now, Isen? Mom, my work schedules are tearing me apart and I must work overtime again. I can't pick up my precious little children. Well, what the hell do you want me to do about it? Go pick them up. No. What do you mean no? You can't do this to me. Please, Naruto. I'm begging. Why do you still keep pestering me? Hire yourself a damn nanny or something, I don't care. I have no obligation over anything you say anymore. Our deal ended years ago when I moved out of that bloody house of yours. But I don't want to hire a damn nanny. Besides, my darling children miss you and they'd love to see you again. God. Stop whining, you're acting like a child. Does it mean you'll help me out? No. Oh, come on. Please. I'm on my knees in the middle of the street and everyone's staring. Gee. You think I care? Naruto. Stop it. Naruto. Cut it out. Naruto. Shut up already. Not until you agree. Come on. Please. I'll even get you Mercury. On Isen's end, he could hear Naruto give a long consideration pause. He got to know the demon well enough to know how to stir him in his favor. You're impossible. Thank you. I'm doing my very best. Fine. But you loan me 900 for this too. And 900 what the hell? Except I'm hanging up now. Mumbling on the other end, Isen finally agreed. Fine. 600. Goodbye Isen. No. Okay. 900, 9. Put in a bonus and I'll be there in 10. What? Where the hell did that come from? I thought we agreed on 9 only. You were temporizing too much. And as I recall, time in this world is a precious thing. Isn't it, as you humans like to say? Time is money. That is totally. I can't believe you're making me pay you to see my precious darlings. The vein snapped. You're annoying, Isen. I'm hanging up. What? No. Don't. Okay. It's a deal. I knew you'll see it my way. I hate you so much right now. I know exactly how you feel. Slamming his phone shut, Naruto rubbed his eyes in exasperation. He was pathetic. And he did not mean Isen. Ever since leaving the Kurasaki house, he had failed in doing one thing he was supposed to do. Sever that stupid bond. This is going to be an annoying day. Dropping his transformation jutsu, Naruto could hear distant howls of hollows suddenly erupt but ignored them as he jumped from the bridge he was sitting on and dived into the sky. With time, he found out many new and somewhat similar things worth comparing his past world to this one. Along with recognition and differentiation of reapers, hollows and many more superstitious beings, he finally got a hand of this Reiatsu thing, along with other waking abilities that came with this dimension's atmospheric powers. Some things also finally cleared out. Like the effect he had on the others with his transformation jutsu. Whenever in his original form, Naruto noted that he could stay hidden from humans, but not reapers or hollows. Once back under his transformation jutsu, he was invisible only to the reapers. Sadly, it did not seem to work the same against the hollows, so Luppy could tell when he was alive. Fortunately or not, none ever actually saw how he looked, and he wished to keep it that way, for now at least. Crossing the border of Japan, Naruto soon found himself nearing Karakura town. Not long now till he'll see them again, the Kurasakis. Even though still in denial, Naruto could not help but begrudgingly admit this: he missed Isen's family. Ever since that day he left their home and set his goal on seeing more of this new world, Naruto soon realized that he could not go on long without knowing of them or them knowing of him. And for the first time in a long run, he truly felt selfish. No matter how many times he tried distancing himself, running away, ignoring or hating them, even he always failed. How pathetic. Laughing at his failure, Naruto couldn't help but feel great about it. He even ended up giving Isen his phone number as soon as he got a hold of that annoying device, just so they could keep tabs on one another. For a while now, Naruto started seeing Isen and his kids as part of a family. Isen practically knew everything about him, as he did Isen, which however could not be said the same about Ichigo or the little kid girls. Sure, he was slowly opening up to them, but albeit all that, he still refused to show or even tell them about his true form, silently fearing their reaction to it. Of course, one would say that he should give a rat's ass what little brats thought of him, but the problem was exactly there: he did care, perhaps too much even. Scowling at every person who passed him, the 9-year-old Ichigo Kurasaki dropped his school bag by his feet and sat on the fence, waiting for his father to finally drive over and pick him up from his karate lessons. The day was awful. He got into another fight with local bullies picking on him and ended up being the one at fault. Life sucked. Even the fact that it was the start of a weekend couldn't cheer him up. Well, if it isn't the little pipsqueak. Life sucked indeed. Glaring up at two elder boys he had already encountered a few hours ago, Ichigo jumped off the fence and went to grab his bag, but it was quickly snatched away from him. "Hey! Give it back!" shouted Ichigo. "Why? You have something to hide there?" sniggered the bigger of the two boys. "I said give it. You want it? Come and get it, freak," taunted the lanky one. As Ichigo charged to tackle him, he gasped as the big boned guy suddenly kicked him into the stomach and pushed him to the ground. "Because of your bratty cockiness, we missed our lunch today." Grabbing Ichigo by the shirt, he picked him off the ground. "And for that we will be taking your money. Got that? Now hand it over, brat." Gritting his teeth, Ichigo hissed, "Here's your money," and slammed his foot into the big guy's nose. The boy yelled in pain and dropped Ichigo down. While distracted, Ichigo quickly tackled the lanky guy down and punched him in the eye. Ripping his bag free, he bolted away. The boys quickly gave chase. Jumping over the bush, Ichigo ran into the park. The other two were following close behind, shouting threats and warnings. "Damn brat. When I get my hands on you you'll be sorry. You'll have to catch me first, fat ass." In his boldness, Ichigo failed to notice a sticking root from the ground until he accidentally tripped over it and fell. The bullies quickly caught up to him and pinned him down. "Get off. Oh no. I'm going to mess you up for this, brat." Rearing back his fist, the big bones suddenly cried out as someone grabbed him by his black hair. He was harshly jerked up from the ground. The boy's pained shout stilled as soon as his eyes met with his sudden assailants, and he actually wetted himself. Looking up to see what happened to his partner, the lanky boy quickly let go of Ichigo and prepared to run away. But just as he turned to run, he was caught by his throat and slammed against a tree. His face dropped all color as his eyes met glaring red. "I see you two freaks touch that boy again, I will break every one of your little fingers," hissed the hollow voice of the dark man. To make his point clear, he grabbed the big guy's index finger and began bending it backwards. "Is that clear?" Big Bones cried out in horror, feeling his finger slowly start snapping, while the freaked-out lanky choked out sobs of forgiveness through his tightened windpipe. A stranger, or say, two strangers holding the boys, finally let them drop to the ground and hectored, scram. Nothing but dust was left following them. Ichigo brought his bag close to his chest, feeling a bit frightened at the two not too clear figures gazing after the runaway boys. Ready to thank his helpers, Ichigo gasped seeing them suddenly disappear in a puff. "Wow. Well, at least that was interesting." Jumping, Ichigo spun around and went agape, staring at the same stranger now standing behind him. A very familiar stranger at that. And nah. Smirking down at the gaping boy, Naruto placed his hands on his hips and cocked his head to the side. "You're stuttering, Ichigo. That's a rather bad habit you got going on about you." "Naruto. There, now that's more like IHH. Shit." Naruto lost his footing as Ichigo suddenly tackled him to the ground. "You're back." Filled with joy, Ichigo squeezed Naruto into what could be compared close to a death hug. "Bakero. Let go. You're squishing me." Scratch that. Life was wonderful. For Ichigo at least. The next day, lying relaxed in the hammock in Isen's backyard, Naruto hung his one leg out to swing himself from side to side. No other sounds were present except Ichigo and his friend from karate training Tatsuki Arasawa playing ball close by. Under all those short visits when he came to visit the Kurasaki household, Naruto learned a lot about Ichigo's life past and present alike. Ichigo did not have many friends. Most of the kids usually picked on him because of his apparently weird hair color. There were only some he trusted, and along with his trust came his protection, which Ichigo strived to give those in need. How nostalgic. He's almost like me. Strange bitterness came with those thoughts. They made Naruto remember his days back in the time. Yes. But granted, with better luxury compared to me, Ichigo did not suffer the same loneliness he did. It was more like a feel of being pushed away. Though how is that any different from Naruto's life? He has a family is how it's different. Quickly shaking his head at the last thought, Naruto scolded himself for even thinking such inappropriate things. He hated this feeling, this bitterness crawling in his gut every time something as intimate as a family was called out. He knew he was jealous of Ichigo's life, but, truth be told, he could not take it close to heart. Because now he had something he could call a family of his own. Isen and his kids were everything to him. Damn, that sounds really cheesy. When did all this ever become my concern? Still sore on admitting such embarrassing things, Naruto decided to growl at the thought instead of accepting it, but never truly having the guts to deny it. I really am pathetic. Turning on his side, Naruto looked at the two playing brats. Ichigo, there was something about that boy that made him feel understood. Although Ichigo knew nothing about him, the boy still trusted him. Those deep browns of eyes told him that much. Maybe that's why he sees me as someone special and clings to it. Because we have the same eyes. Frowning at that thought, which even after so long still hasn't left him, Naruto shook his head to disrupt all bothersome ideas. Still. No matter how many similarities we might share, we're not the same. We can never be. He can never be like me. A demon like me. The glass of bubbling yellow liquid was suddenly pushed in front of Naruto's face, and he rolled his eyes up to stare at smiling Isen. Penny for your thoughts. Naruto took the glass with a cocky reply, my thoughts are much more expensive than that. Chuckling, the man smacked Naruto's feet to the side and sat on the other end of the hammock. So how's life been to ya? No good. I still can't get out of this world. Dissatisfied, answered Naruto, staring at the odd liquid drawing little bubbles from the glass bottom. What is this stuff? Lemonade? What? You never tried it here? Not even in your own world? Such liquids usually contain poison in my world. You don't have to worry. I'm not going to poison you. Winking at him, Isen waved to his son in greeting. Giving him a wary gaze, Naruto looked to the side as Ichigo came running over without a breath. Can Tatsuki and I have some too? Smirking, Naruto gave the child his glass. Sure, here. Chirping gleefully, Ichigo grabbed it and gobbled half of the lemonade down, before offering the rest to Tatsuki as soon as she came by, and then ran back to play. Furrowing his brow in dramatic disappointment, Naruto huffed, so it wasn't poisoned. Isen looked at Naruto with a stern gaze. Why do I have a distinct feeling that you just wanted to poison my son? Me? Now why would you think that? I wonder. Don't put too much thought into it. Besides, it would have been your fault if something were to happen to Ichigo, that is. Hunching him on the leg, Isen felt relief wash over him when he heard Naruto chuckle. Seeing that those were rare moments when he got to see the other truly let himself go lax, he could forgive Naruto for his twisted mind and laugh along. Humming down the dark stairs and into the kitchen, Naruto flicked on the lights and went to look for a midnight snack. Even though he had long since lost all taste of food, he just wanted an excuse to have something to chew on. Roaming through the cupboards, his eyes quickly caught a rather large picture frame situated at one of the top shelves. Picking it up, he glared. It was of that time when he quickly became acquainted with Isen and was left in charge of his children, which, as weird as it all was, all happened in just a half-day's period. He was in the chair with 3 kids all over him, sleeping peacefully, except Yuzu, who was giggling from her perch on his raised leg. And here I thought I broke that damn camera. TCH. The bastard must have kept the negatives. In the end, Naruto didn't have it in him to take the picture out and tear it apart. He placed it back. Finding nothing worth his while, Naruto poured himself a cup of hot boiled water. That same bastard still hasn't given him the promised mercury, so water will have to do. Flopping down on the couch in the living room, he turned on the TV and flipped through 100 channels that showed nothing but music, erotica, blank channels, or some of those 24-hour Discovery shows. It was about 2 in the morning after all. Groaning, Naruto stopped at about the 60th channel that blared music and dropped the remote onto the table. Pulling his legs up, he brought his hot water close and drank it, silently thinking to himself about a particular child who but not a few seconds after disrupted his thoughts by silently sneaking down the stairs. Naruto shook his head and placed his cup away, patiently waiting the moment to come when Ichigo will attack. I got him now. Congratulating his stealthiness, Ichigo silently crept behind the couch Naruto was sitting in and pounced. Gotcha. Ichigo's yell of triumph was ruined when the Naruto he jumped on suddenly slipped past his fingers and dissolved in thin air. What the AHH. Better luck next time, kid. Said Naruto from his seat next to Ichigo's upside down form. Feet in the air and his head on the couch. Not fair. How did you do that? Whining and childish protest that made Naruto laugh, Ichigo seized that moment and jumped into Naruto's lap. "Ha! What do you think of me now?" Proud of his accomplishment, Ichigo leached onto Naruto's shirt. Shaking his head in amusement, Naruto asked instead, "Why are you still awake? I wanted to spend more time with you. And who knows when the next time will be before you disappear and come back again." Accusingly, the boy shot back in defense, and to prove the point of being disappointed, he puffed his cheeks and narrowed his eyebrows angrily. Yes, Naruto visits were always short, for he never stayed longer than 3 or 4 days. And lately those visits have greatly diminished as well. Reason why, which Ichigo did not know about, was because Naruto was basically on the run. The Reapers and the Hollows were becoming more and more restless, still searching for him for an unknown purpose, which, frankly, Naruto did not want to know. What a depressing life I'm running. One time, it became too much of a close call. The Reapers were closing in on the family. How they found leads on him. That alone probably had something to do with Ichigo's wild hair. So much he could guess from their last encounter. And Ichigo was on their list. So, to lead them away, it resulted in Naruto's sudden year-long disappearance, with no connection to Isen or the grounds of Japan. But that wasn't the only reason. Ichigo cocked his head to side, noting Naruto's eyes become distant and cloudy. Snapping back to reality, Naruto breathed in a good amount of air before quickly focusing on the frowning boy. "Don't frown. Or you'll get stuck looking like that," he joked, poking Ichigo between his eyebrows. Not sure what was up with that look, Ichigo didn't dwell on it too long, for he finally got the man's attention, and he intended to have as much fun as possible. Arching a brow at Ichigo's sudden mischievous expression, Naruto gasped when the boy abruptly pushed him into the couch with as much strength as he could master and attacked him with tickles. "No. Stop. Stupid brat, that's not if you know I'm ticklish." Wiggling under the child's ministration half-heartedly, Naruto couldn't suppress his laughter for too long, which in turn made Ichigo laugh as well. At times like these, Naruto just didn't know why he even tried to break their bond in the first place. It was so easy to let it be and bathe in those warm sounds the boy made through little giggles of happiness. Also, it's been so long since he'd last heard something like that. And with things that have been happening these past few years, who knew how much longer he'll have until he no longer gets to hear them. Is this me being selfish again? After 5 months, it had been a rainy day just like that time when Ichigo had to bid farewell to the most important person of his life, his mother. And on such an analogical day, he had to say goodbye to another. Thunderous bolts of lightning were tearing through the sky today, producing one terrifying feeling after another with each flash and blasting sound. Watching the rain pour down his window in waves, Ichigo sighed, leaning his chin on his crossed elbows. Where is he? It sure is a stormy night tonight, even if it is the middle of summer. Placing a hand on Ichigo's shoulder, Isen smiled reassuring when his son's saddened eyes turned to him with a silent question. "Don't worry. He'll come soon. He wouldn't miss this day for the world." Smiling, Ichigo gave his dad a quick hug and ran back to the party. Watching his boy rejoin his sisters and some of the invited friends, Isen looked outside the window, anxiety written all over him. "Where are you, Naruto?" Heavy rain poured over the lonesome figure hovering in the middle of stormy sky, untroubled by threats of the lightning nearby or by deep dark depths of the ocean down below. Staring at a shining necklace in his hands, a small kunai-shaped pendant made from solidified mercury, strengthened by his own chakra, Naruto heaved out a shaky breath and brushed his eyes from the pouring rain, or was it not rain? Putting the necklace in his pocket, Naruto breathed out a troubled huff and kicked his wings against the air, heading fast towards the Kurasaki household. Landing gently on top of the roof, Naruto slid down towards a familiar window. He was slightly surprised that it was unlocked and just as surprised to see a small figure sleeping under it. Squatting over the windowsill, Naruto peered down at the small boy. Ichigo, the poor kid, must have fallen asleep while waiting for his arrival. Jumping in, he silently closed the window and picked the boy up, placing him under the sheets. Sitting on the side of the bed, Naruto brushed a hand over his orange tresses and smiled at small sleepy murmurs. "I'm sorry it took me so long, Ichigo." Noting that the clock by the nightstand showed 23:57, Naruto was pleased. "Well, at least I didn't miss it entirely." Taking out an old crinkled scroll from the inner pocket of his jacket, Naruto placed it on the drawer and then pulled out the shining necklace. Sliding it gently over Ichigo's neck, Naruto bent down to press his forehead against the boy's. "Happy birthday, Ichigo." A sudden sound of something shattering startled Naruto, and he quickly stood on his feet. Grabbing a kunai from his boot, Naruto looked one more time at Ichigo before silently exiting the room. Once downstairs, he peered around the corner and noticed a tip of a huge dirty tail before it disappeared into the kitchen. Seeing no point in waiting, Naruto ran into the kitchen and confronted a monstrous being standing on hind legs. Its back was spiky, it had a slick tail and broken claws. Its face was undistinguishable, however, due to a white mask covering it. "It's a hollow." The 4-meter-tall hollow suddenly faced him and cried out in a loud screech. "Shit. Quickly jumping away, Naruto dodged the being which quickly launched at him. I can't fight it in a house. It's going to wreck it. Evading the monster's grabby hands, Naruto rolled to exit and quickly ran out. The hollow followed him, barreling headfirst through the door. As soon as the beast was in the open, Naruto jumped onto its head and stabbed the monster through the mask and into its glowing red eye. It screamed in pain and struck its tail at him. Dropping the jutsu from his hand, Naruto cut his own razor-sharp claws through the bothersome appendage, cutting it clean off. Keeping a tight grip on the thrashing hollow's mask, Naruto then tore it clean off along with half its face. The beast screeched in pain and dropped to the ground. Landing behind him, Naruto quickly slammed his hands onto the ground and pushed his chakra into the dirt, watching as deep roots quickly forced themselves out and tied all over the hollow, squeezing it under a crushing hold and forcing it back underground. Just when he thought that was over, a loud terrified scream from the house shook Naruto to the core, even more so when it was followed by a loud blast that tore down half of the house wall. No. Jumping into the gaping hole that was once Ichigo's room, Naruto shot his eyes all around the empty space before running through the broken doors and into the hall. His eyes widened at the sight of Ichigo covering in the far corner, with 2 more monsters advancing him. Red clouded Naruto's entire vision, and he stormed at the creatures without thinking. Ichigo was terrified and baffled. He barely even understood how he ended up like this. He was sleeping just a second ago, and then he was forced awake by a tremendous pain in his head and back. When he opened his eyes, he had found himself lying in the hallway with 2 monstrous things crawling towards him. Now pushed into a corner, Ichigo didn't know what to do. Just when he thought they were going to get him, he gasped. A clawed inhuman hand suddenly burst out of the approaching monster's chest before its head was cut clean off its shoulders. As the first monster dropped to the ground, the second turned around and received a blade between its eyes. Ichigo clung his shirt tight and pushed himself further against the wall, practically drilling himself into it. His eyes couldn't look away. He watched the second monster get stabbed through the skull by a black blade before it was ripped out with a sickening whir and cross-lashed across the beast more than twice, forcing blood in all directions, and the divided body parts fall in a gory mess. Ichigo's trembling eyes reluctantly glanced up. His vision was blurry, but he was starting to see a figure. He felt joy rising in his belly once he saw a flush of yellow hair, knowing it as Naruto's color, but his joy quickly changed into deep sense of horror when his eyes fully adjusted from the tears. In front of him was not the Naruto he knew. In front of him was another monster. Its features were vicious. Those familiar whiskers Ichigo always saw on Naruto were cutting this creature so deep they were actually bleeding. Its teeth and fangs were sharp and long. Its strange ears were pointing up in aggression. Eyes entirely red. Hair long and wild. Its arms and legs sharp and clawed. And behind its back stood translucent red wings which shimmered strangely, as if not an actual part of its body, along with 3 thin, long, red tails moving from side to side. Terror overwhelmed Ichigo's entire body. No, and not Naruto. The motionless eyes rolled down to stare at him in that horrible bloodlust. Those weren't the eyes he loved and cherished. They were nothing but dark holes, just like before. It was all the same, just like that time when his mother died. Those same monstrous eyes. One breath after another slowly began subduing Naruto's raging heart, and he was finally able to take a look at Ichigo. He was breathing. Good, ensuring that the boy was okay and breathing, Naruto finally let himself calm down. He's fine. He's okay. Good, smiling slightly, Naruto stepped forward and extended his hand, wanting nothing more than reach for the boy and take him into his arms. But his movements froze. He saw Ichigo's eyes well up with deep fear and horror. What's confused and worried, Naruto's unspoken question was soon reflecting in his own eyes. His hand. No, the jutsu. He had forgotten about the damn jutsu. Taking a sharp step back, Naruto cursed his mistake. Looking down on himself, he felt his barriers crumble. In his anger he had succumbed to his demon's chakra and dropped the transformation jutsu. No, he wasn't supposed to see this. On impulse his eyes quickly changed back to blue and his dark chakra retreated away to reveal his medium. His teeth, ears and hair lost their wildness and shortened a bit, and his wings and tails turned transparent, flickering only now and then in and out of existence with the slightest flicker of his blue chakra. Looking back at the shaking boy, Naruto tried to approach him. Ichigo. I can explode. No. Terrified, Ichigo suddenly yelled at him. Don't come near me, don't touch me, I'm not letting you trick me. Covering his ears and eyes shut, Ichigo refused to hear or see anything anymore. And no more, you won't trick me anymore, you monster. Naruto's world crumbled right there. Sharp pain struck his soul and tore open all healed wounds. That name, that accursed name. It was like a blade pushing itself into an old scar and twisting and turning until there was nothing left inside to cut anymore. Taking another step back, Naruto felt his breath hitch. He was torn. That's not how this was supposed to go. This is not. Biting his lip, Naruto lowered his voice. Ichigo. I didn't want you to see this. I never. Go away. Go away. Go away. Not willing to listen to any more manipulations, he was sure the beast wished to inflict on him, just like when it transformed itself in order to fool him and lure him into a trap that killed his mother. Ichigo shook his head. Not Naruto. It's not Naru. Just a cruel trick, an illusion. Fear and shock clouded Ichigo's mind and prevented him from any rational thinking. Ichigo. Returning home after driving Ichigo's friends back to their parents, panicked Isen came barging into the hall. Bloodied walls and a broken house shocked him greatly, but all that was nothing as his main concern washed away upon seeing his son alive. Though dread soon joined once his eyes caught sight of Ichigo's fear and what he was so fearfully trying to hide from. For the first time he saw Naruto's actual form. He was no longer under that jutsu of his. Large wings shimmering in and out of existence, curled close behind Naruto's back, while three long tails connecting his spine lay motionless around his bare feet. His legs were haphazardly covered by torn black pants, pathetically clinging to Naruto's hips. His orange shirt was torn at the back, showing bit of ribs and thin waist. But what got Isen's attention most were the indescribable black writings covering Naruto's back, as well as his shoulders and arms. Naruto. Naruto glanced at Isen over his shoulder, unintentionally giving the man a chance to fully see him. Naruto's hair was slightly longer now and had a bit more red to it. His ears were shaped oddly. His whiskers had cut in deeper into his cheeks, well enough to see bit of flesh. And his eyes, still blue but now with slits for pupils, were full of hurt and rejection. Unable to look the man in the face for long, Naruto closed his eyes before he cracked completely. Isen. I'm sorry. Letting his kunai drop with a clang, Naruto turned around and quickly walked away. Naruto, wait, catching his elbow, Isen cursed when that didn't stop the man from disappeared from his grasp and his house entirely. Naruto. Ichigo flinched. Naruto. Was that really Naruto? Looking at his father yelling down the vacant hallway, Ichigo felt unpleasant coldness around him suddenly. He knew this feeling. It was the same feeling as before when Naruto left their home. Leave? No, I don't have to leave. Kneeling before his trembling son, Isen gripped his shaking shoulders. Ichigo, it's okay. It's me. Are you hurt anywhere? Ichigo did not answer, his eyes stayed fixed on the hall. He last felt Naruto's presence. And it was disappearing. No, his whisper, like a silent hope, received no answer back. Don't go, don't leave. Gripping Isen's forearm, Ichigo suddenly shot to his feet and dashed for the stairs, ignoring all his father's calls. That was Naruto. Not a monster. That was Naruto. Running out into the rain and empty streets, Ichigo yelled Naruto's name. Naruto. No one answered. Looking frantically from one side to another, Ichigo didn't stop. He started running down the road. He had to see Naruto again. He needed him. You can't leave. Ichigo. Isen came running out of the house. Damn it, where is he? Before he could take another step in blind pursuit, a sudden wail made him quickly turn around and storm back into the house. Shit. My daughters. Karen. Yuzu. In all this haste he completely forgot to see if his daughters were alright and safe. Running into the room, he hugged his crying girls, praying to himself that Naruto will be by Ichigo in case something bad happens. If only he could divide into two like Naruto. Naru searching corner by corner, side to side, Ichigo completely ignored the heavy rain wetting his clothes and the pain from running on asphalt barefooted. He had to find Naruto. Reaching the main street, Ichigo stopped and looked around. There was no one out, no one to hear him and no one to help him. Roads were dark and empty, nothing but dim lights from streetlights illuminating his way. Where are you, Naru? Before he could resume his pace, a sudden hiss from a nearby alley startled him and he quickly backed up, tripping over his own feet. Starting worriedly into the dark alley in front of him, Ichigo silently called out. And Naru? Is that you? Another hiss was imitated from the darkness and Ichigo felt his breath clench. Two red eyes suddenly revealed themselves. Naruto. A loud grumble and threatening slams of heavy feet against the wet ground was his answer. Those eyes abruptly multiplied and grew bigger with each advancing step. Scared, Ichigo began crawling back till his back hit the side of a building wall. Inhuman eyes glimmered in glee. One by one, they started closing shut until the last one disappeared under pitch darkness of the alleyway. Ichigo stopped breathing and sat rooted to the spot. He dared not move and he dared not blink, not even once. Suddenly there was a screech and something sharp shot out of the alley, storming right towards him. But the scream, Ichigo quickly brought his hands up in defense. The bone-piercing stab rang through the streets, along with gushes of split blood that quickly dimmed under the sounds of heavy rain and thunder. Ichigo flinched, feeling something cold splash onto his hands and face. Slowly he opened his eyes. His heart almost stopped. Didn't I tell you before that your mother will always watch over you? No matter what. Naruto was in front of him. Hands spread wide in front of him and a huge sharp blade sticking out of his chest. The line of dark red blood slid down the tip of the beast's bone-shaped tail protruding from Naruto's chest and dropped in between Ichigo's legs. Naruto smiled at him, perhaps that's why I came into your life. as a protector under her will. Just like that angel of yours gently, he brushed his clawed finger under Ichigo's eye, catching a stray tear. No more crying, child. I'm right here. Though tears still welled up in Ichigo's eyes. Naru, I'm sorry. Hush, none of that. You did nothing wrong. Swallowing down a lump of blood before it spilled past his lips, Naruto did his best to calm the boy down. Please don't make me retell you everything I once said about decisions and all that destiny shit. Wheezing through sobs, Ichigo shook his head, and no, I did not mean WH when I called YU. Pulling the boy's chin up, Naruto interrupted his stammer with a simple SHH. It's okay. I promise. Right now I'm just glad I made it in time to give you this. Ichigo's eyes widened as Naruto tugged on something hanging around his neck and he quickly looked down, staring at a shimmering necklace. WH. We had some great times together, nah. I just wish they didn't have to end so soon. Looking back at Naruto, Ichigo saw past all those unmasked features, past the wild appearance, past the body deformations, and saw deep azure irides that he always liked. They were the same, showing the same power, mystery, kindness and protectiveness. It was Naruto. Different, but still his Naru. Dropping his eyes on red whiskers, Ichigo shyly reached out to touch them, but choked on a small happy sob when Naruto interlocked their fingers instead. Bowing his head, Ichigo gripped Naruto's hand with his both. Please don't die, please. Smiling sadly, Naruto pressed his forehead against Ichigo's head. It's okay. I'll always be near. Like mom? Hiccuped the boy, clenching Naruto's hand tighter. Like your mom. We'll watch over yo ngh. Coughing out blood and grabbing the end of the tail which started moving, Naruto grit his teeth and held his ground. The hollow had become restless and was trying to pull him into the darkness of the alley. Naru. Worried, Ichigo wished he knew what to do, not bearing to watch Naruto struggle like this. Don't worry. I'll be fine. Breathlessly assured Naruto and looked into Ichigo's glassy eyes with a small grin. You've sure grown since last time. I hope my second gift won't be lost on you. Recalling the scroll he left in Ichigo's room, Naruto hoped Ichigo will find it, especially after what he's about to do. A second gift. Use it wisely. Was all Naruto said on the matter before suddenly becoming serious. Ichigo, forgive me. Huh? Blinking confused, Ichigo felt one of Naruto's clawed digits suddenly press against his forehead and his eyes met blue depths of his best friend's. Goodbye, little protector. The last thing Ichigo saw was a small light coming from Naruto's fingertip before he was jerked away by the monster's tail and swallowed by the darkness of the alley. Naruto darkness consumed Ichigo next and he fell to the ground without any memory of the blonde being ever coming into his life. 7 years later, life had changed drastically for Ichigo. From becoming a brooding, emotionless shell of a teenager, he was now a brooding, emotionless shell of a substitute soul reaper. The one who battled evil spirits driven from human souls called hollows, and the one who helped guide the lost ones to the afterlife realm called the Soul Society. His sudden encounter with one of the Soul Reapers had granted him the power of a Reaper for, what originally was assumed, a limited amount of time. That however was not the case anymore. Considering the way his Reaper powers kept increasing day by day, it had quickly become unlikely for anyone to guess when this limit will finally reach its end. And right now, that same substitute Soul Reaper was riding in a car with one of the most annoying men he had ever met, Urahara Kisuke. Geez, Urahara, you sure picked out the right time to learn how to drive. Sitting in a backseat, the young Kurasaki tried to see at least something behind those heavy drops of rain hitting the windows. Quiet, Kurasaki. Can't you see I'm trying to concentrate on these spinning stick thingies? Those aren't spinning stick thingies. Those are wipers. And why the hell are you even staring at them? Look at the damn road before you kill someone. No one is going to be wandering around the streets at this time. Why did I even agree to this? Why, because of my most generous offer to drive you home, of course. Now ain't I a nice guy or what? Or what is a good question? Crossing his arms, Ichigo sank sulkily into his seat. Are we there yet? Be patient, Kurasaki-kun. Turning to the so-called driver, Tessai Tsukubishi pointed him the direction which he should take next. Okay, now on the next cross, turn left. Whistling merrily, Kisuke haphazardly turned the wheel, minding not the curses from his backseat passenger who went toppling over and entered a bumpy road leading them into a forest. The car started jolting under each bump and whole Urahara didn't even bother bypassing. Whoa, that was a bad one. Slow down, damn it. Ichigo pushed his hands up to save his head from hitting the roof again. You're gonna fracture the springs. Please, Ichigo. I've driven this bad boy through mountains and under that damn lake in the park and nothing happened. Suddenly there was a bright light exploding right from the center of the sky, followed by a straight beam shooting out of it. Stop. Ichigo's loud scream forced Urahara to slam down the brakes and poor Ichigo go flying forcefully from the back to the front. And that's why you should always buckle your seatbelt, student. Smacking Ichigo's bent ass, Urahara gave a loud laugh. Shut up. All of them quickly shut their mouths up when something fell right on top of the car's hood before rolling down and dropping in front of the bumper. "What the hell was that?" whispered Ichigo. "I think it was something alive." With the same wide-eyed look replied Urahara. Jumping out of the car, Ichigo carefully peeked over the incurved hood to see what mass did this. His face lost a little bit of color when he caught sight of an outstretched shackled clawy hand lying in the muddy dirt. On further examination he was quickly relieved to note the rest of it had a human body. "It's a person." Ichigo quickly knelt by the unconscious human. Stepping out of the car with his assistant, Urahara tipped his hat up. "Who is it? Are you going to ask me where they live next? How the hell should I know?" Instead of wasting time yelling, you could simply turn him around and see. Bending down, Kisu carefully turned the unmoving body over. "How do you even know it's a male? Ah. You're right." The now distinguished gender of the body looked young, perhaps 18 or 19 years, and even though covered by mud, they could discern bright yellow hair with light red tresses, tan skin, and rather unusual looking whisker-like marks on his cheeks. The guy's strange features were all that got Ichigo's mind pondering. Kisuke and Tessai however held a different point of view. Kisuke shared a secret glance with his partner, he knew very well who this boy was. Up close, his unorthodox power was radiating all over the place, and it was definitely not anything they've encountered before. Figures Ichigo didn't sense it. "It's him, Tessai." "Him?" Hearing the whisper, Ichigo blinked confused. "What do you mean by him?" "It does not matter now, Kurasaki-kun. We have to get him to the lab, quick." Reaching over to pick the teenage boy up, Tessai, unfortunately, didn't get too far. Something tall suddenly appeared right in his way. The three tensed as white-clothed figures abruptly surrounded them. "You're in the way," grumbled a hard-faced ranker. Raising his hand, he smacked the glass-wearing shop helper away with brute strength. Tessai. Too preoccupied digesting the rapidly commencing events, Ichigo didn't register that a fist connected with his face till he got slammed against a tree. A tall, blonde-haired ranker hauled the unconscious body from the ground and nodded to the others, "Dispose of the rest. We are done here. Shitty bastards." Get by. Ichigo's further shouting was silenced by a grunt when he felt Urahara push his soul out of his human body. "Go after him and retrieve that boy," he instructed, pointing towards the disappearing ranker. "I'll handle it here." Nodding, Ichigo gave chase. Flying over the trees, Finderkarias glanced back to see the Reapers get held back just in enough time for him to escape. "Said it's time to report our success." Looking down at his burden, the slimmer ranker smirked in approval at showing claws and slight change in the hair color. "Istuga tenshim." Startled by the abrupt shout, Finder quickly skid to a halt and jumped a safe distance back, dodging a flash of black and red Ryatsu that nearly struck him down. They can't do anything right. Blaming his comrades for the appearance of this Reaper, the blonde ranker moved in time to dodge a large blade suddenly charging him. Missing him by bare inch, Ichigo quickly kicked from the ground and jumped after him. Summoning his next attack, he fired it before swiftly disappearing and reappearing behind the ranker. As predicted, the ranker dodged and at the moment, Ichigo had his opening. He stabbed his Zanpakuto through the blonde's arm, cutting it halfway off. Shit. Forced to let go of his burden, Finder quickly moved out of the Reaper's way. Taking the chance, Ichigo dove after the falling teenage boy and caught his hand before he met the ground. Gently lowering him down, he stood protectively above him. "Move, Reaper. And I'll consider sparing you your life." The ranker landed in front of Ichigo and drew out his own Zanpakuto. Ignoring the threat, Ichigo asked instead, "What business do you have with this boy?" "None of your business, that's for sure. Now, step aside before I cut you down." Come and try it." Ichigo challenged boldly. "Cheeky brat. You're dead." Sneering, Finder charged him, as did the Reaper. Exchanging blow after blow, hit after hit, they quickly found themselves off the ground and high in the air. Skidding to the side, Ichigo gasped for breath. He was running short on openings against the persistent ranker, which really seemed to want to get that blonde boy. "Give up, Soul Reaper. You can't beat me." Well, that's too bad. I guess I'll just have to kill you instead. Stop messing with me." With a yell, Finder brought his Zanpakuto up, though before the command left his lips, a firm hand landed on his shoulder. Also startled by the unexpected appearance, Ichigo gripped his blade in both hands, readying himself for anything. "That would be enough, Finder," said Jinichimaru, that mocking smile never leaving his face. "Let us head back." "Nani?" Confused by the sudden need to retreat, Finder turned to argue, but those are the orders. Leaving no room for arguments, Jin opened the garganta leading to Huecomundo. "Let's go." Uaiyo. Taking a moment to look at the unconscious demon below them, Jin's sinister smile wavered a bit before it landed on Ichigo, and he smirked again. "Ikuzo, Finder." Watching the ex-captain disappear through the black hole, the disappointed ranker shot one last glare at confused Ichigo before following. "Gee, and we were so close this time too. What the hell was all that about?" Wondering to himself what just happened and what was that look Jin gave him, Ichigo landed back down just as Urahara came by. "Did you take down the others?" quickly questioned Ichigo. "Aye." They retreated. Nonchalantly replied Kisuke and knelt next to the dirty blonde, checking if he was breathing. Why were they after him anyway? Staring down at the source of all this commotion, Ichigo glanced accusingly at the shopkeeper. "This doesn't have anything to do with your previous it's him, does it?" Grinning toothily, Urahara shrugged, "Who knows, maybe, maybe not. Anyway, help me get him back to the car." Rolling his eyes at the annoyance that was that man, Ichigo decided to pry for answers later and pick the scarily lightweight boy up. Loud yet somewhat familiar beeping sound soon began disrupting Naruto's sleep, and slowly his mind and body awoke. Opening his azure eyes, he blinked at the first notion to meet him, which was an unfamiliar warmth that definitely did not meet the cold characteristics of Wako Mundo, a hollow world that came to be his home of 7 years, spent in restricted confines, harsh membership and unyielding torture. Considered dead to the rest of the world, Naruto, the case of a vagrant demon had been closed. Never spoken again within the walls of Soul Society. It was on that one fateful day, when his life had been taken by a monstrous hollow, Naruto was proclaimed dead. His disappearance from the face of this earth inferred the Soul Reapers into believing that as a living being, he stood no chance and was devoured, never realizing that his disappearance had taken a different turn entirely. He was taken to Wako Mundo. But the truth was that Naruto did die. As far as his memory could tell, it was for the 4th time during his entire life. Even though known as immortal between most creatures, Naruto was still capable of dying. There was no such thing as true immortality. Even if believed true, it never came without a price. And Naruto's price was paid when he merged with the 9-tailed demon fox. Yes, his long life and thriving survival could be called something close to immortality. But like anything in life, it had its limits too, and his was. 9 lives for 9 deaths. To overcome his deaths, Naruto accepted Kyuubi's tails. Each was counted. This time, it was the 4th tail. Perhaps from this point on it'll only be a matter of time until he gains all 9, and his medium will become that of a completed demon that knows no heart, no humanity. That was the deal he made with the tailed beast. He'll strive to live as long as he can, until he becomes Kyuubi itself. Looking back a year, or had it been more, before his supposed death in Karakura, was the time Naruto first met him. Isen, the infamous Hollow Lord, or whatever the hell he liked calling himself back then. The man had been searching for Naruto the moment he stepped foot into this accursed world. Reasoning was his hunger for Naruto's hidden power and a chance to sway him to join his ranks. Though, despite his best efforts, he soon had to come to one painful realization: Naruto was very stubborn and refused to yield. Soon after their first encounter, Isen had switched tact. He turned forceful. Not one to take no for an answer, Isen had begun sending numerous dead souls after Naruto. By each day, his minions had increased, but no matter their shape, size or power, his method had been met with yet another failure. No matter how hard he tried, he could not bend the demon to his will. Sweet talk, bribery, physical force, none of it was enough to break him, and that was when he had finally found it. A weakness that had finally made Naruto crack. Known for his good ways of playing a person's mind, Isen had succeeded in making Naruto see his way. And now, throughout those captive 7 years, despite Naruto's persistent resilience, Isen managed to subdue him enough to teach him when not to cross his lord. Clenching his fists at the thought, Naruto finally forced himself up and checked his surroundings. There was not much to see. The room held no windows. More than anything, it looked like an underground basement. Naruto tried recalling what happened. He remembered Isen letting him out of his cage to battle against 3 of his Frachian, or were they a rancor? Either way, the reason for it was simple: he wished Naruto to reveal himself. And since asking wasn't working, he again switched to physical force, making his hollows beat Naruto up until he snaked and showed them his true form. Unfortunately for Isen, he refused giving him such pleasure. Making Naruto bow to Isen was one thing, but to drop his jutsu and show the man his true power was something else. Be it honor, be it pride, or just plain stubbornness, Naruto cared not. It was a choice that rested with him alone. After that, their fight had somehow taken them to the living world. By Ranker's proclamation. They wanted a change of scenery. And then I took on the full hit of their zeros. And that's it, blackout. Looking down at his hands, Naruto cursed when he saw his claws showing. His transformation jutsu had dropped slightly, though not enough to reveal him fully. No matter the number of times Isen tried sending Naruto unconscious, he had never succeeded seeing him without his jutsu. This time, however, it appeared they managed to drop it a bit. Doing a further examination on his arms, Naruto became confused. His shackles were gone. Instead, they were replaced by slim tubes connecting him to the beeping machinery next to the bed. Where was he anyway? Did Isen decide to experiment on him again? Hadn't he learned from what happened last time? Tearing the needles out of his arms, chest and stomach, Naruto pulled the covers away, only to quickly replace them back down. Why the hell am I naked? Staring around the vacant room with blazing eyes, daring the person who stripped him to come out and be slaughtered, Naruto suddenly forgot everything about that issue when he caught an orange glow surrounding the room. Wait. What's this? Pulling the thin sheet around himself, Naruto slipped off the bed and cautiously approached the strange phenomena. He placed his hand over it. It was cold yet it radiated the aura of warmth around him. Strange tapping his knuckles over the cool glass, Naruto could feel its thick substance. Testing its endurance, Naruto punched it with his fist. It didn't break. Bringing his fist down harder, he felt irritation spark. It didn't budge. The fuck is this, he yelled, but that didn't do much either. The sound just resonated back. This small ball of orange glow was keeping him sealed from the world outside. Thought was it even the world that was behind this ball? Naruto checked his knuckles. His punching had done more damage to his skin than the glass itself. If it's not one thing it's another. Staring at his bleeding fingers, Naruto slumped against the glass and slid down to the floor. A silent voice in the back of his head wondered if he should just let his demonic power out and blow the whole fucking place up, but then again, that's exactly what they'd want him to do, isn't it? I hate this. There was a distant tap and Naruto heard footsteps. Turning his neck to the side, he waited for Isen or one of his pets show themselves. He couldn't really see much of the outside. Although the glass barrier was see-through, the space behind it was too dark. This orange bubble he was in was probably the only source of light in a much bigger area. As soon as a human foot stepped into the phenomena's outer circle of light, Naruto tucked the sheet closer and slid away from the glass, wary to think what kind of magic they were going to use on him next. Ever since the Urahara encounter, Ichigo just couldn't get the thought of the blonde teen out of his mind. For an absurd reason way beyond his understanding, he felt himself getting drawn to him. Like a moth to the flame, he wished to approach him, look at him and stay close. He wished to know who he was, how he's been, and ask so many more questions that he didn't even know what for all this was weirding Ichigo the hell out. He had never met the guy before. Why was he suddenly so interested in him? And to top it off, Kisuke and Tessai weren't telling him anything. That in itself was reason enough to make him snap. So, to stop himself from losing it completely, Ichigo decided to do what he did best: go and find everything out the hard way. While everyone else was at peace and rest, or in Urahara's case, busy making up some crap, he stole the shop's adjourned room key and stepped into the darkness that held the blonde enigma. Shutting the doors behind himself, Ichigo silently crept downstairs until he came to a stop in front of what he's been looking for, bold near the edge of the barrier. Staring up at the figure slowly revealing itself, Naruto couldn't hold in his shock. Ichigo. Looking down at the blonde, who looked no older than him, Ichigo couldn't exactly place the reaction he was receiving. It was as if the other saw something in him that brought forth a shockwave of old feelings. Have I met him before? He wondered to himself before tensing slightly when the blonde rose to his feet and approached the glass barrier. Why's he here? What's he doing here? Am I no longer where Aizen is? Question after question filled Naruto's mind while his feet subconsciously took him closer to the barrier, safely separating him from the boy. No longer a boy. A young man. But still just a child in my eyes. Outstretching his hand forward, Naruto placed it against the glass, staring deeply into Ichigo's vivid chestnut eyes and taking in all matured features of the child he remembered once being smaller than him, not the tall man standing before him now. He's grown so much. On whim, Ichigo outstretched his own hand and hesitantly placed it over the glass in front of the others. For some odd reason, a heartwarming smile suddenly broke through the blonde's features, and Ichigo couldn't help but give an awkward smile himself. Looking down Ichigo's lost yet kind face, Naruto spotted something glinting on Ichigo's neck and his eyes widened slightly. It was the kunai-shaped necklace. Why are you wearing it? Don't tell me you still remember me. Troubled, Naruto curled his fingers and stepped back. He had gifted Ichigo that chakra necklace to keep him safe during that awful day, and after what had happened, he did not expect him to still wear something he should have no recollection of ever receiving. Not after what he did. Ichigo was startled by the action and sudden hostility of the other's behavior. He was even more perturbed when the blonde smile faded and he began glaring at him. What's with this bipolarity? One moment the blonde's all happy to see him and the next he acts as if he wants him to disappear from the face of the earth. What's wrong? Ichigo asked, knowing that the other would be able to hear him, but not the other way around. To prevent them from getting manipulated, in case the guy possessed some kind of mind-controlling abilities, Urahara constructed the barrier specifically to keep all sounds in and made sure to adjust the seals to repress that powerful aura from spreading out and about. They didn't need any unwanted visitors dropping by right now. Naruto turned away. His eyes closed shut tight to stop them from swelling up with annoying emotions. He couldn't face this child, no man, anymore. He was the thing of the past now. Nothing more, nothing less. Go away, Ichigo. He couldn't lead him back into his life. Ichigo mustn't know him anymore. Why else would he erase his memories? Placing his hands over the glass, Ichigo felt his heart clench for some odd reason. What was happening to this guy? Why was he acting so strange? But more importantly, why was all this affecting Ichigo so much? Go away. Naruto placed his hand over his forehead, trying and failing to force all thoughts of the past away. Stop thinking. The brat's gone. That bond is gone. We broke it, I broke it. It does not exist. Nothing in my life must exist anymore. Opening his mouth to call for him again, Ichigo swore when the entrance doors suddenly clicked open and Urahara came in. So, how's our friend doing? Cheerful as ever, Kisuke stepped before the barrier and peered at the being, which greeted him with a glare. Why are you keeping him like this, Urahara? He's not an animal. Ichigo snapped without realizing. He just didn't sympathize with the thought of the blonde staying in a cage. Now Ichigo. I'd be happy to kindly ask you shut up and mind your own business, but knowing you, I'm not even going to try. Instead, let me say this fella here is way beyond an animal or a human. What are you saying? He's dangerous, is what I'm saying. Dangerous? Ichigo frowned, what do you mean? Sighing, Kisuke turned towards the member of the ever-persistently curious Kurasaki family. He is a demon. With widened eyes, Ichigo quickly looked towards the so-called demon, who caught his eye for a brief second before turning away. If Ichigo's eyes weren't tricking him, he was positive he saw a glimpse of sadness reflect in the blonde's eyes, before it got hidden by stony indifference. Sadness. But if he's a demon, why does that fact worry him? Shouldn't demons be like, I don't know, proud of themselves? Especially their kind. And just where exactly are there any traces of him being a demon anyway? He doesn't have any horns or wings. Ichigo woke up from his mussing when he suddenly realized he's being pushed through the doors. Apparently Kisuke took full advantage of his confused state and decided to kindly escort him out. Excuse me, Kurasaki, but I have work to do. Huh? What kind of work? Urahara. Turning around, Ichigo hissed as the doors slammed in his face and locked shut. Stupid hat. You know damn well that I can break these doors down if I want to. Yelled Ichigo, pounding his fist against the wood. That I do, but I also know that you won't dare, not as long as Tessai's here. Happily sang Urahara from the other side of the doors. Well, too bad. Tessai ain't actually here. Ichigo's further intentions were quickly stopped by a loud cough. The towering shop assistant was standing behind him in comfy PJs and menacingly glinting glasses. Shit. As soon as he heard Ichigo get dragged away, Urahara focused back on the demon. Seeing your interaction with Ichigo, I assume you understand our language well. Taking silence as a sign of approval, Kisuke lightly bowed his head, reminding himself from ancient books that respect would always be honored, especially when encountering something that was not of their world. I deeply apologize for the caused inconvenience, he gestured towards the barrier and the captive's current state. But please understand, for my own safety and those around, I'm afraid it had to be done. Getting nothing but heated glares for answers, Kisuke smiled and decided to take the next step into this one-sided conversation. My name's Urahara Kisuke. I'm the owner of this place, the Urahara shop, which is where you're currently located. Well, underground really. Pleased to meet you. Still given no reaction nor an acknowledgement, Kisuke tipped his hat. I believe for us to continue this conversation, it'd be nice to know your name too, yes. Smiling mischievously, Kisuke felt like experimenting a little. I mean, if you have one, being a demon and all. That was risky, for the next thing Urahara saw was the demon's fist slam against the glass in front of him and actually crack it. Ah, touchy. Looks like demons do take pride in names. Urahara fought hard not to chuckle. He really had to stop himself from agitating the demon any further. From what he could tell, this guy had enough self-restraint and control to withhold a decent conversation if treated respectfully. Peace. I meant no disrespect. In all honesty, I never met an actual demon before and have very little knowledge on them. So please, forgive me if my actions seem a little off, trust me, they aren't intentional. Staring at the man behind the cracks of the healing glass, Naruto knew what he was trying to accomplish with all this pleasantry. Well sure. Why not? I'll give you my name. Placing a bared claw digit against the glass, Naruto carved his name. Urahara had to suppress a cringe. That scraping was doing his ears no good. Iubi was what he wrote for the man to read. Pulling his hand back, Naruto stepped a bit back, giving the other some assurance that he won't try and finish the job of breaking the glass completely, which he apparently could do if angered enough. Stupid emotions. Iubi, Kisuke tasted the name on his tongue. Rather peculiar name. Huffing at him, Naruto turned his head to the side, disinterested. Iubi, I'm more than willing to let you out and grant you a more welcoming hospitality, but before I do, there are some things I'd like to ask first. Are you willing to cooperate with me for a bit? Looking at the man from the corner of his eye, Naruto had a good hunch where this was going to lead to. The past 7 years in Hueco Mundo taught him much about the good sides and bad sides. Too bad for them, he was not planning on joining any. Deeming it safe to proceed, Urahara began, how long has it been since you came into this world? Silently wondering how the man knew he was not from their universe, Naruto left it mingle with the rest of the questions he chose to ignore and rose his fingers. 10 years. With a confirmed nod from the demon, Urahara nodded himself. That's about the time Soul Society detected his first appearance. Do you know what hollows are? Receiving another nod, Kisu continued, Reapers. At that he got a finger pointed at him. Chuckling slightly, he approved the gesture, yes, that's me. What about humans? Stupid question was what Urahara could read from Kyuubi's expression. Alright fine. You seem quite familiar with this world. Now, then tell me. Do you know who Isen is? A simple nod got Kisu on edge. Stepping closer to the barrier, his next questions turned more serious. You encountered him before. I guess that would explain your disappearance 7 years ago. Tell me, are you on par with Isen? Here Kisu tried hard to read the other's expression without missing a beat. He had to be sure the demon gave him an honest answer. Alas, he could not detect any change, the demon's mask was too perfect to read through. Prolonging the pause long enough to witness Urahara start sweating a bit, Naruto restrained himself from smirking openly and mouthed out a simple no. Sighing out his held breath, Kisu straightened his posture. He read the demon's lips clearly. I don't think you're lying. Judging by the hostility towards the notion of loyalty and the state we found you in, my guess is that you haven't come to be as fond of Isen as he had probably hoped. I tend to enjoy my freedom, snarled Naruto, not bothered whether the man read his words or not. Urahara's eyes slightly narrowed in thought, but even if he says that, he's still a demon. And demons are depicted as wise and tricky, among other things. His answers are still questionable. He could very well be lying about everything. However, stuffing his hands inside his robes, Kisu took out his trusty fan and hid his grin. I believe that'll be enough for now. I'm not going to let you out right away. There are some issues I must handle first. I hope you understand. Though, before I do free you, I'd like to have your word on a few certain things. Naruto hoped for the man's own safety that whatever he'll ask of him won't be reason enough to kill him. What if Naruto was transported into Bleach? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.